A small boy with black hair turns to a woman and asks her to open her eyes. He holds her hand and begs her to wake up. Lily opened her eyes and saw the boy and then asked in surprise what His Highness was doing near her bed and what brought him at such a time. The boy explains that he was worried about her and asks if she is sick. The lady replies that she is fine and explains that she is just a little exhausted. The girl says that she should rest a little and tomorrow she will be on her feet. The boy says that no matter how much he called her, she did not wake up, and that is why he was afraid, and he thought that she would never open her eyes again. The little gentleman asks Lali if she will always be by his side, and he wonders if she will keep her promise. At this time, the main character thought that this sad tempo of full childish hope, and she does not understand how she cannot respond to his feelings, and then says that, of course, as long as he wants it, she will always be by his side. But in fact, the main character was not a bark at all. One day she lost her balance on a horse bridge, and the next moment she woke up as a secondary hero. The novel is the only dream that she read at the time. But the most regrettable thing according to the plot is that Lali had to die, the place where the events of the empire of the patrons of fire Fodia unfold. The main character of the story is Tyr Reinario. He was the infamous prince who failed to awaken the power of fire, which is the distinctive feature of the members of the imperial family. The main character ended up in the body of a servant girl named Lali. She had one sin: she tried to steal the legacy of the young prince, which she accidentally broke. This enraged Tyr. He awakened the power of fire in himself and killed Lali. Since then, no member of the imperial family has been able to come close to the threshold of Tyr's power, and the story itself tells of his heart injury, which was inflicted on him by one girl. However, in order to survive, the main character changed the plot of the original. She looked after Tyr so that he would not need anything, and these 6 years were enough to open his heart. And when she was sick, he shed his sincere, childish tears. The girl reflected on the fact that existence shapes consciousness, especially when it comes to a child. And from that day on, Tyr ceased to be that notorious tyrant from the whiny novel. The only thing that worried the lady was that if she changed the plot, would he be able to awaken his power? As Lily lay in her bed, she heard someone come into her room and thought it might be Tyr. However, a man entered the room, and then he pounced on the girl and covered her mouth. At this time, the main character does not understand what is happening, and she only saw the silhouette of a man and thought that she could die now because she cannot breathe. The girl. After some time, she inhaled air. And at that time she heard a conversation about how she was reacting and had finally regained consciousness. The lady doesn't understand where she is because a second ago she couldn't breathe. The man calls her Alicia and asks if she has come to her senses. He wonders if she really woke up. Hearing this name, the main character does not understand who she is. The man thanks the heavens that his daughter woke up, and hearing this, the lady thought that he was her father. When Lali looked at her hair and hands, she realized that this was not her body, and she does not understand what is happening at all, and therefore assumes that this is just a dream. The maid turns to Her Highness and asks if she is okay. The father suggests that the doctor assess the princess's condition quickly. At this time, the main character thought that having experienced death, she once again returned to this vicious pond. People she did not know were bustling around, and they called her by a strange name. The girl thought that she had been reincarnated again. A month later, the doctor is amazed that she has not woken up for 7 years but looks absolutely healthy. The maids say that this is simply a miracle of God. The princess is sure that it is all because they looked after her. And then she looks at the doctor and suggests that he stop crying because at every examination, her eyes are wet. The doctor apologizes for her sentimentality and says that before she would have immediately thrown him out of the room, and then she says that she has become so kind that he has nothing to regret even if he dies today. The main character claims that he didn't say that and then suggests that she clear her mind in the fresh air, and at that moment she thought about how mean this princess was. Alicia Ashtad. 7 years ago, the youngest princess of the kingdom, Ashtad, was struck by lightning and fell into a coma, and after 7 long years her heart is still beating, as if by some miracle she appeared in her body and woke the princess from her eternal sleep. But the worst thing is that exactly on this day 7 years ago, Lolly was supposed to die, and the girl does not understand why she woke up in this body after so much time. Tyr, who is now 20 years old, 3 years ago, staged a rebellion and began to sit on the bloody throne, and that innocent boy who held her hand at night and shuddered at every rustle. The lady wondered if he met the main character, like in the original story, and became the emperor. But she doesn't understand why someone needed to kill her, because she understands that she was the target, and the prince remained safe and sound. The main character thought that she had a headache because there were too many discrepancies, and her current life was very different from the original. The princess thought about what would happen if she completely severed her connection with Tyr, and she realizes that she was so afraid for her own life, and that is why she fawned over him so much. The girl remembers that when the prince was little, he asked her never to leave him, and so she thought that perhaps he met the main character and forgot the inconspicuous servant from his childhood, and she is sure that everything is fine with him now. The next day during lunch, the father turns to his daughter and says that she has been walking quite a lot lately, and asks if she is having a hard time. The princess tells him not to worry, and explains that she is trying not to overexert herself. The man says that, simply because of her formal communication, a feeling of detachment appears and he feels uncomfortable about it. The brother says that there is such a thing, and then he asks if she took etiquette lessons in her sleep, since he doesn't recognize her at all. The princess replies that she can't act like a child. The guy explains that he means that with them she doesn't have to worry about such things, and so he thinks that maybe she's just more used to addressing them like that, and then asks where she picked that up. The prince says that nevertheless he likes it better, because before she would have preferred to talk to the wall than to give them a minute. And he is even surprised that they get along so well now. The father turns to Harrison and tells him not to push, and then says that no matter what she is still their Alicia, because he believes that the past and present do not exist. The young gentleman says that he didn't mean it that way, and the girl says that the main thing is that he likes her. Harry explains that he didn't mean it that way. The father says that he can't deny it because Alicia is absolutely right. At this time, the main character thought that her brother was a little grumpy, but she liked his honesty. Harrison reports that they have recently decided to increase surveillance on the country's border, and His Majesty says that this is good and then asks if there have been any unexpected precedents. The man explains that a couple of days ago, information was received about an unknown person, possibly related to the Empire of Fodia. The Emperor suggests not to lose vigilance and, in each case, to report immediately. His Majesty says that if Emperor Fodia gets something into his head, he will achieve it by any means necessary, and in the worst case, a bloody war could break out. The son asks why they do not consider the option of compromise, because he believes that entering into hostile relations with the Empire of Fodia is stupid and reckless. Father explains that they are unable to fulfill his conditions, and from what he has heard, he is interested in elves, and he does not know if these rumors can be trusted. The main character remembered that in the original, Tyr's mother was an elf, and she does not understand why he is trying to find them. The gentleman claims that these rumors are true, and the Emperor asks to reveal the location of the elves. Harry screams and asks what nonsense this is and how they know where to find them. The Emperor replies that this is the problem. Each country that could not satisfy the Emperor's request one after another disappeared from the face of the earth. Hearing this, the princess was surprised, because she thought that it meant that Tyr might start a war with them. His Majesty says that last year the kingdoms of Tahel fell at his hands, and it appears that they are next in line. The son wonders if he really intends to invade their country. The father says that there are rumors that the Emperor of Fodia is looking for something, and probably elves. The kingdom Ashtad is surrounded by blue lakes and snow-capped mountains. Due to its northern location, it is extremely difficult for outsiders to reach it, and for the same reason, wars bypass this kingdom. This place has an unshakable connection with nature, and the members of the royal family from generation to generation awaken spiritual powers in themselves. The main character understands that this is why he is so sure that the Ashtat king knows something about elves, and no blood except royal has such a close connection with human nature. The girl ponders that the reason Tyr is so desperately looking for elves is because he might be following in his mother's footsteps. The main character does not understand why she moved from 1,000 countries to this one, and she only thought that her life was not in danger, and she wonders why she reincarnated twice in the same work. The lady remembers that she has searched through all the library books, but has not found any information about reincarnations, and so she thinks that she must meet some sage and bombard him with questions. However, the girl understands that, on the other hand, he can understand that she is not a real Alicia, and she does not understand where she was brought to. And at that time she felt someone's gaze, and looking at the bushes, she thought that there was someone there. Suddenly, an animal jumped out from behind the bushes and knocked the girl to the ground. At that moment, she thought that these were wolves she needed to pretend to be dead. After a few minutes, the princess does not understand why it is so quiet, and then she saw that it is not a wolf, but a dog, but it is somehow large. Alicia touched the dog and saw black fur and yellow eyes, and said that it reminds her of someone. The main character remembers that when the prince was little, he saw a little puppy who hurt his paw. And when she looked at the boy, she thought that she had not seen such enthusiasm in Tyr's eyes for a long time. The girl turns to His Highness and asks if they can take him away. Then she says that she will look after him. The young gentleman agrees to take the puppy. A few days later, Lolly says that she thought that when his wound healed, he would leave them. However, she understands that he is not going to leave them. The girl suggests giving this puppy the name Rudd, which meant famous wolf. The boy calls the puppy Rudd, and then claims that the name suits him. At this time, the main character looked at the big dog and thought that 7 years is a huge period, and she can't even believe that Rudd was as obedient as he was. But when he heard the howl, she still thought that he was a wolf. Alicia doesn't understand why he is so obedient with her, and in this, he is like a rude. Hearing this name, the dog pounced on the girl and began to hug her affectionately. Suddenly, the princess heard a question about what he was doing, and she saw a guy with black hair and scarlet eyes, and she wondered who he was. The girl turns to the wolf cub and suggests that he be quieter because they have guests, and at that moment she thought that outsiders are not allowed here, and she does not understand how he got in. The lady turns to the guy and asks who he is, and at that moment she looked at the dog and does not understand why he calmed down. Alicia doesn't understand what happened to the atmosphere in the last minute. The guy looked at the girl and said that he thought that this dog was going to kill her, and therefore he thinks that this is not like him at all. The stranger offers the animal to come to him. The lady asks in surprise if he is the owner of this wolf. He answers that one can say so, and then strokes the wolf. The princess asks if he has a name. He replies that the wolf lost his name along with his mistress. Hearing this, the girl thought that he had a mistress, and she says that she is leaving, and at this time she thinks that it is none of her business. She does not like his company. The stranger asks why he doesn't want to let her go. The princess says she doesn't know and asks why he really does this. Alicia believes that dogs are extremely empathetic, and probably he saw kindness and a pure heart inside her. The guy comes very close to the girl, and looking into her eyes, he saw his nanny. The main character turns to His Highness and asks if he is okay, and at that moment she thought about what she showed her, that his gaze became full of despair for a moment, and therefore she thinks that she needs to run away as soon as possible. The girl thought that he did not seem like a welcoming person, and at this time she did not understand why her body did not obey. When the man left, the girl thought about what brought her here, and she doesn't understand who he is at all, and that deadly look coming from his red glass eyes, and she became so scared that she didn't even ask his name. The main character ponders that she should leave before they run into him again. However, she realizes that their meeting today was not their last. At night, when the main character was sleeping, she dreamed of a little boy who asked why Lolly left and did not keep her promise, and he wondered why she left him. The girl in the dream replies that he is wrong since she did not leave him at all. Suddenly, she saw Harry in her room. He screamed and told her to wake up quickly and that they didn't have time. Then he suggested that she throw a robe on her and follow him. The princess asks where they are going. The brother replies that they are going to the audience hall. The lady asks why and what happened. Harry asks her how she managed to fall asleep in all that noise. Then he tells her that they are already expected, and there is a secret passage. Hearing this, the main character thought that if they had to use it, it would mean a war had begun. When they arrived, the father invited the princess to come to him. The lady wondered what was going on. His Majesty explains that as they had expected, Emperor Fodia is on his way to them. The father turns to his daughter and says that she has not yet awakened her spiritual powers and therefore suggests that she take her hearing and run away. The princess asks in surprise what will happen to him and the others. However, her father suggests that she leave quickly. Suddenly, the main character saw the man she met in the forest yesterday. Fodia screams and tells them to stop, and if anyone moves, he will burn this palace to the ground. At this time, the maid desperately took a step back and saw a very large flame of fire near her. The emperor crying out suggests that everyone should move away, and then he turns to Emperor Fodia and asks what he is doing. The young master replies that he even burned his palace and asks if they think he won't burn them. The princess turns to her brother and asks if he is Reincarnation. He replies that this gentleman is the Emperor of Fodia. Hearing this, the main character does not understand how this happened, and then remembers that Tyr's eyes were gray. Alicia realized that if they were red now, then Tyr had awakened his firepower without Lali's influence. And then she saw that intense gaze and thought that he really did look like Tyr, and his lower lip had always been plump. The Emperor turns to the Tyr and says that even if he came here in person, he still won't get anything from them. At this time, the lady saw the spiritual power of the king of Ashtada, and it is incredible, and this color surprised the girl. Emperor Fodia replies that he finds it funny to hear. At this time, the main character felt that their eyes had just crossed, and he says that he has changed his mind and has another proposal. Tyr offers to give him the princess. Brother Fidel asks, screaming what he is talking about, and then tells him not to talk nonsense. The gentleman with red eyes says that refusal means death. Fidel turns to His Majesty and tells him not to listen to him, and then he says that he will sacrifice his life to avenge this insult. Tyr says that he sees that this man is very brave, and then asks if this is the famous spiritual power, and he is disappointed. Fadl takes the sword and turns to the Emperor Fodia and asks him to look in his direction since he is his opponent. At this point, a man with silver hair appears in the room and offers to sheathe the swords. He apologizes for interrupting and explains that he is the chief advisor to His Imperial Majesty, and his name is Vakan Dwitz. Wacken reports that he sees the situation. It is not favorable, but they can think about this proposal in the long term, since His Majesty always keeps his word. Fadl screams and says that this is a threat, not an offer. The silver-haired man says what he thinks they understand, that only their side has the right to dictate the terms, and despite the absolute advantage, they still negotiate with them. And that's why he asks to assess the situation sensibly. Harrison thinks this negotiation is bullshit. His father tells him to step back. Then he shakes his hand and thanks him for his cooperation. Wacken says that their conditions are as follows, and while Princess Alicia is in the kingdom's empire, Ashtad must carry out His Majesty's orders. Hearing this, the main character thought that taking her away would not be enough for them. The Emperor says that he already told them that they know nothing about the elves. Tyr asks why they are so naive and stupid, and then explains that he gave them a chance to save their lives, and asks if they shouldn't at least put their selfishness aside for now. Emperor Fodia informs them that if they wish, he can turn their palace into a crypt. Hearing this, the main character thought that this was no longer the boy she knew, and if they continued to resist, it would only anger him. She realized that they would not be able to overcome such a force. The princess says that she agrees. Hearing this, the father cries out that she should not say that. The lady explains that this is the only way to save the kingdom, and she also wants to live, and so she agrees. Alicia understands that if they don't make a decision now, the conditions could get even more complicated. And she understands that no matter what happens, the main thing is to save herself and the others. Tyr heard this and turned to Alicia Ashtad and said that he saw that she was the smartest one here. At this time, a wolf appears in the room and runs up to the princess. Seeing the beast, the knights became worried that he would not harm their princess. However, the wolf ran up to Her Highness and she stroked him. Seeing this, the advisor does not understand how this can be. At this time, the main character thought that she should turn away and pretend that she was confused, but she does not want to do this and does not understand why. She understands that this wolf turned out to be a Rudd and cannot even imagine that he recognized her. The princess reflects that if she is destined to find herself in Fodia again, she must find out something about Lali's death. The main character says that she is the princess of the kingdom Ashtad Alicia, accepts His Majesty's offer and goes with him to Fodia. Advisor Wacken tells the girl that from the outside they might think that they are kidnapping her. Hearing this, she thought that she went with them absolutely voluntarily. When the princess looked out the window, she saw her relatives and thought that they were so worried, as if she had died. But still, in that short time, she had already managed to become attached to them. The girl doesn't know why she reincarnated for the second time, but now she envies Alicia, who is so loved by her family. Standing at the gate, she looked at that mansion and thanked them all for the beautiful kind and also valuable memories. Sitting in the carriage, the main character does not understand why the emperor sat down in front of her, but when she saw his gaze, she turned away because she felt awkward. The lady ponders that he was trying to hint that she would leave him alone, and she wonders what happened during these 7 years. The princess recalls that she woke up from sleep only a month ago, and this previously innocent child had already managed to show up at her side, showing his tyrant temper. She looked at his red eyes with interest. The guy with the scarlet eyes asks why she is looking at him like that, and then he asks what his generosity has made her completely lose her fear. Tyr thinks that she probably just saw her miserable future in his scary eyes. Hearing this, the main character thought that she was just staring, and he was saying that the princess understands that these eyes distinguish members of the imperial family and signify an elemental awakening, and she does not understand why he does not like them so much. His Majesty asks if he is right. The lady objects and says she has not thought about it. He tells her not to make him ask twice. Alicia replies that she was simply surprised that he found such beautiful eyes ugly. Then she explains that the color of human eyes is directly dependent on the pigment melanin. The main character realizes that in his case his eyes turned red because he woke up. The emperor asks how she knows about melanin, but the girl remembered that they still don't know about melanin. The princess explains that she doesn't even remember where she found out about it, and then suggests that she probably read it somewhere. The servant informs His Majesty that they have already arrived at the magic portal. The main character saw the color soft purple. Can they enter now? And at that time she thought that she wanted to get out of this carriage as soon as possible because she would suffocate. Sitting in the carriage, the emperor remembers his maid, who once suggested that he look at the flowers that had blossomed, and he does not understand why in Alice Ashtad he sees her. The servant turns to His Majesty and informs him that the magic portal will soon close and therefore suggests that he hurry. Tyr reports that they are already on their way, and with the help of magical portals they found themselves in the Fodia Empire in 1 day. Alicia doesn't know if it's magic, but she was sick for 3 days upon arrival. She stayed in the Eastern Palace near the Emperor's palace, and this place turned out to be quite comfortable, and all her fears were quickly dispelled. The princess never met Tyr after arriving in Fodia. Opening the window and breathing in some fresh air, the main character thought that he must have heard that she was sick, and then she assumed that maybe that was how it was supposed to be. Alicia reflects on the fact that he has no reason to visit her, and she realizes that he did not bring her here to get engaged. Suddenly, a lady with green hair enters the room and asks Her Highness how she is feeling. The lady in the green dress is Countess Ante, the head maid of the imperial palace, and the fox replies that thanks to her she feels much better. Auntie says that she is glad to hear this and then says that she wants to introduce her to a maid who will take care of her. Hearing this, the main character thought that this woman is a straightforward person and she appreciates this. And that is why it is very easy to communicate with her. The Countess offers Mary to say hello. The girl with red hair says that her name is Maria, and it is an honor for her to serve her mistress. The princess thought that she had a personal maid, and she needed to make friends with her in order to adapt to the new place faster. The main character reflects on the fact that they assigned her to her out of the kindness of their hearts, and then turns to the maid and says that she is counting on her, and at that moment she thought about the fact that they moved her so that she could watch her. Mary turns to Her Highness and says that she is not obliged to communicate with her formally. The Countess says that it is quite sunny today, and then asks that if she wants they will prepare everything for the walk. The princess thought that the Countess interrupted the maid by accident, and therefore believes that she is hinting that they should not get closer. And it is also assumed that this is a common prejudice or an order from the Tyr. The girl asks in surprise if she can really go for a walk, and she doesn't want to walk around the palace with some kind of intent looks. Countess Ante explains that it is not against the rules to walk around the palace grounds. However, Mary must accompany her. Then she says that she must not go towards the villa under any circumstances. The Countess says that she won't like the atmosphere there, and foreigners can easily get lost. The princess says that she will take note of this, and then says that it is high time for her to get some fresh air. The Countess turns to Mary's maid and tells her to help Her Highness. The maid quickly went to the dressing room and chose a beautiful dress. She explains that Her Highness took almost nothing with her, and so she was ordered to prepare several outfits. Mary says that the designer will not arrive until tomorrow, and so the dresses will be ready in a few days. At this time, the main character became interested in why the Countess mentioned the villa, because she understands that not everyone can get there anyway, and the road to it is not just confusing, and this place is called a forest labyrinth. The princess reflects that if she wanted to warn her, the best option would have been not to mention the villa at all, and suggests that perhaps she wanted to spur her on to commit a rash act and make the naive princess wander through a scary forest. Mary turns to Her Highness and begs forgiveness for having completely forgotten about her parasol. Then she says that she will run and get it in a jiffy. The princess says that she will wait for her outside. As she goes down the stairs, she sees that the entire wall is covered with a piece of art, and she is impressed. The main character remembered that the Eastern Palace was also called the Gallery, and she thinks that they were right because there is a lot of art in one place. She wondered how Maud was doing, who was the only friend in this world. Alicia remembers. When she was hungry, this woman gave her something to eat, and she thought that maybe the Maud still works in the kitchen of the Imperial Palace, and so she thinks that she needs to find out about her. Suddenly the lady heard the maid talking about how she would be quieter because the princess was somewhere nearby, and she thought that they were talking about her like that. The maid says that everything is fine, and that she has been sick and bedridden for the last few days, and she is very beautiful because the emperor did not take her for nothing. The princess thought that the maids were the same everywhere. The maid says that the emperor brought her all the way from another kingdom, and before that he was never interested in any girl except for the maid who looked after him in childhood, whose name was Lali. Another maid asks if she's crazy. Then she says she should know that that name is taboo. Hearing this, the main character thought that a taboo was imposed on her name in this castle, and she did not understand why. And then the maid remembers that the emperor expelled everyone who mentioned her name from the palace the next day, and it's strange to her. After all, she doesn't understand what kind of relationship they had, and it's hard for her to even imagine how much they didn't get along. The princess remembers that before she was killed, they were each other's only ones, and they even exchanged promises that they would never part. And she does not understand where these rumors came from. The maid says that she also heard that this maid betrayed the emperor and ran away when he was little. The main character, hearing their conversation, thought that she shouldn't unconditionally believe the words of the maids because she understands that rumors are rumors so that they can be filtered. The girl thinks that first she will get to the bottom of the truth, and then she will enjoy the walk. Suddenly, a wolf ran out of the bushes and attacked the lady. Seeing this, the maid turns to Her Highness and suggests that she be careful, and then she says that he is very dangerous. Alicia squats down next to Roof and then pets him. She says that he wants to be scratched behind the ear too. Then she asks if he doesn't deserve human affection. The princess says that he is a very kind wolf cub. The servant heard this and did not understand how this was possible. She looked in surprise at the black wolf who was treating the princess kindly. At this time, the main character is almost sure that he recognized her, and she believes that he came running to her as a personal anti-stress, which calms her down after the false rumors. A young gentleman comes up to them and says that he sees that the wolf is overjoyed. Seeing the emperor, the princess greeted His Majesty the son of this vast empire. Tyr says that she seems quite carefree, then asks if she is comfortable here. The princess replies that thanks to him, she quickly regained her strength. The emperor says that's good because he was beginning to think he'd have to send her home in a box, and he wouldn't want the guarantee of their agreement to lose its value so quickly. The young gentleman turns to their princess and suggests that she take care of her health and not create problems. She tells him to let her take her leave, and at that moment she thought that she would never get used to this harmful arrogance, and she would like her little affectionate Tyr to return. At this time, Roof comes to the princess and touches her as if hugging her. She thought that he was a cutie, and she only had him left her son. Roof licked the lady and she told him to stop because it tickled. Mary looks at the princess in surprise and then asks if Her Highness is okay. The lady turns away from the wolf and thinks that she is about to fall from his caresses, and then she makes a gesture with her finger and says, "Dish." The emperor at this time noticed what Alicia had done and then asked in surprise how she knew this gesture. The lady explains that she always said biddish when puppies started licking her as a child. However, the gentleman asks in surprise what happened to her hands and what it was. The main character asks if he means a slingshot. He doesn't understand why she asks him this. The princess objects and says it's a slingshot. Then she looks the wolf cub in the eye and asks how he knew that. The lady says Rudd is a genius. Tyr says he should ask her how she knows the name. Alicia replies that she was passing by and overheard it. He asks from whom. The lady replies that she doesn't know these people and that she met them for the first time. The young gentleman asks why she makes him angry every time they meet. Then he says that it is surprising to him since he has heard that she has not been well in recent days, and then wonders how she manages to do it all. Tyr reports that he initially thought he could trust her, but not anymore. She also wondered why he was reacting this way. The main character remembers that the maid said that the master does not like when someone reminds her of her, and she wondered if he really thinks that she betrayed him, ruthlessly abandoned him, and ran away. At this moment, Alicia just wants to shout after him that she didn't leave him at all. Suddenly, the wolf looked at the master and then barked at him and showed his teeth. Tyr asks if he is slowly going crazy, and then looks at them in surprise and wonders if maybe he is going crazy. The main character reflects on the fact that it is hard to imagine now, but before she and Tyr would have picnics in the shade and eat all sorts of delicious things, Alicia remembers that she brought a tray with the prince's food and suggests that he eat because he needs it now much more to grow big and healthy. The maid turns to His Highness and asks for forgiveness for looking after him so negligently. The little boy doesn't understand why she apologizes and asks about it, because he understands that she got all this with great difficulty. The prince says that even if he eats little and grows not very big, the main thing is that she is always nearby. Hearing this, the main character was surprised and then asks His Highness that he used to be very honest and she does not understand when he managed to become so kind, and she thinks that he has matured. Tyr says that there is not that big of an age difference between them. The main character remembers his smile, which was so warm like a ray of spring sunshine. At this time, sitting under the tree, Alicia does not understand when Tyr managed to become such a villain, and therefore she thinks that she is very sorry that he remembers her like this. The princess hugs the wolf and says that they often rested with Tyr after a walk, and it seems to her that it was just yesterday. Suddenly, a man comes up to them and says that he is not alone here. The main character asks who he is. Pari replies that he is Oscar Verlick, vice captain of the Imperial Knights, and therefore Her Highness can simply call him Oscar. Hearing this, the princess thought that he already knew who she was, and she couldn't believe that the vice captain was standing in front of her. Oscar asks if he can rest here too. Then he assures them that he won't disturb them. The lady replies that he can do as he wants, and at that moment she thought that he had actually already interfered with her. The vice captain says that it turns out the rumors were true, that she had become so close to this wolf. The princess says that he must have taken a fancy to her. Oscar says that he is not so affectionate even with His Majesty, and one would think that she re-educated him. When the captain heard his name, Togo, he said that he came here for it. Wacken says that since he has time to rest, he would be perfect for this task. Oscar asks what he is talking about, and then claims that he is a very busy man. The Emperor's advisor explains that this is an order from His Majesty, and he will be Princess Ashtad's personal guard. Sitting behind a tree, the main character thought that they were talking about her again. Oscar replies that he doesn't want to, and explains that he has never done anything like this before. Wacken reports that he has seen him fight valiantly on the front lines many times. The captain says that since he knows he does not understand why he asks him to do this, the Emperor's advisor replies that it is probably because he has not yet found a warrior with vast experience and exceptional talents suitable for this job. At this time, the main character smiled and thought that it was unlikely to work. The captain agrees and says that he is right. The princess thought that he was taken in. Wacken probably doesn't suit him that well then, but the guy objects and says it suits him perfectly. The Emperor's advisor says that he is most likely not suitable for her, and therefore he will look for another candidate. Oscar tells him not to bother, and then he tells him that he is standing before the elite of all elites. Wacken says that he is so touched by his speeches, and perhaps he can still trust him with this hard, difficult work. And then he says that from tomorrow, his workplace will be located in the Eastern Palace. Hearing this, the captain does not understand why his nose hurts as if someone is moving it. The princess reflects on the fact that he circled his finger 10 out of 10. Oscar angrily asks if he wants to die right on this grass. Wacken replies that he has a very busy schedule today, and when he wants to die, he will definitely come to him. Alicia ponders that if Tyr sent him, it was probably to follow her. The captain turns to the Wacken and says that they will meet again. He replies that he is always glad to see them. The princess reflects on how they are behaving like children. After some time, the advisor came to the Emperor. His Majesty says that he already thought that he would not return from Oscar, but it turns out that he is still alive. Wacken explains that he was only gone 30 minutes, and then asks why he buried him already, and then asks if the princess will accompany him on his journey to the underworld. A man with blonde hair turns to His Majesty and asks if he is angry, and then explains that he met with her on his orders. The Emperor claims that he only ordered him to appoint Oscar as her personal guard. The man explains that he was next to the Princess. Tyr is surprised to hear this. Wacken says that they must have met by chance and were lying on the grass and talking comfortably together, and at that time he thought that they were like a couple blessed by heaven. The Emperor asks in surprise what he means by the word couple. The advisor asks if this princess intrigues him. He wonders if she reminds him of the maid from his childhood. His Majesty heard this and angrily said that if he was going to joke, he should make sure his mouth was closed. Wacken tells the Emperor to cool down because he only wants to give him advice, and says that if he is really interested in her, then let him act, and then explains that he will regret for half his life if someone else takes her away. Tyr explains that he only regrets that he will leave Lali alone. Then he says that if he has nothing better to do, then he should sort this matter out and gives him a piece of paper. The advisor reads about a fire in the slums. He says he was just about to go there in person. 12 people were burned in this fire. In addition to burns, many were found to have serious injuries, and this is a very controversial case. The Emperor explains that this is why he needs to find out what really happened. Wacken agrees and says that they will slowly find the trail, and then he says that Duke Jouvert insists that he choose an empress for himself as soon as possible, and he says that all these fires are due to her absence, and as soon as a worthy woman restores order to his heart, then the empire will have peaceful times. The Emperor says that he will see through his true motives and then asks if there is anything else of interest. The advisor asks in surprise if he wants to hear some report from him, and then says that he understood because His Majesty asks about the princess and asks if he shut his mouth. Tyr, you tell him to speak and then show him your sword. Wacken says he understands and then tells him to put his sword down. And the man with silver hair explains that he recently said that near the kingdom Ashtad, a slight distortion of magical power is felt. This distortion was weak and scattered. However, he decided to check it anyway, and on that very day, Alicia woke up who had not woken up for 7 years. Wacken asks if it's interesting, then he claims it's too much of a coincidence and asks if he finds it that way. Hearing this, the Emperor thought that the connection he had tried so hard to deny was growing stronger. He wondered if this could be a mere coincidence. At this time, the princess sitting in her room thought that somehow she did not want to have dinner today. However, she was glad that she was allowed to walk outside. Alicia lay down on the bed and thought that meeting new people was very tiring. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door, and then Mary announced that she had arrived and apologized for disturbing them and asked if she could come in. The princess invites her to come in, and at that time she thinks that she has no appetite and must say that she will not have dinner. The maid informs that His Majesty has invited her to dinner. Hearing this, the main character thinks that she knew this would happen, but she didn't think it would happen so soon. Alicia agrees, and then asks when Mary replies that His Majesty is waiting for her, and he will be waiting for her at the main palace in 30 minutes. The girl thought that 30 minutes was very little time for Togo to get ready. The maid said that she understood that there was very little time and so she would help her get ready. In such a short time, the princess looked stunning, and when she arrived, she said that she was extremely grateful that His Majesty invited her to dinner. Tyr says that he sees that she was in no particular hurry. Hearing this, the princess thinks that she should have warned her in advance, and then says that 30 minutes is not enough for the girls. The emperor suggests that the lady sit down, and at that moment she thought that she doesn't want to eat at all, but she will force you. And she doesn't even believe that this man in front of her is that kind, carefree prince from her memories. The main character thought that only 7 years had passed, and she did not understand when he had managed to grow so much. And when she looked at his arms, she thought that she had not noticed that he had such powerful muscles, and his shirt was unbuttoned to the navel. The girl doesn't understand what she's thinking about at all, and so she thinks that she needs to pull herself together. And whoever he is, he's still the little boy she remembered as small and cute. The princess understands that things will never be the same again, and she needs to be careful not to anger him again. Sitting at the table, the emperor recalls the words of his advisor that this princess intrigued him so much. Tyr reflects on the fact that although she interested him, the coincidences with her were too ambiguous. The emperor turns to the butler and says that he must discuss the upcoming dinner, and therefore let him call the sous chef to him, and he realizes that perhaps this is not a coincidence at all. At this time, the main character thought that she tried to calm down and not make mistakes, but she was even more worried. Tyr tells the lady not to be afraid since he won't eat her today. Then he asks if that's why she's shaking so much. Alicia replies that everything is fine. The emperor asks in surprise if she is afraid of him. The girl replies that she is not afraid. Tyr says that he has long noticed that she is completely unaware of fear. Hearing this, the main character thought that she was so worried that she didn't even understand what she was talking about, and if Tyr were a princess, he would keep the entire high society in fear with his menacing face. When the princess looked at the emperor, she did not understand why he so openly avoided her gaze, and she does not understand why he then invited her to dinner. The waiter informs her that this is a special salad that the sous chef prepared for her, and therefore he hopes that she will like it. The main character looked at the cucumber salad and remembered that she couldn't stand them in her past life. The lady understands that the sous chef tried, and therefore she cannot eat the cucumbers. The emperor asks her if she likes cucumbers. Hearing this, the main character realized that he was watching her, and she remembers that a second ago he was hiding his eyes and now he is drilling her with his gaze. Alicia replies that she doesn't like them, to put it mildly, and then she explains that she's starting to feel sick of them. She looks at the emperor and thinks about his heavy gaze, which says that he's a tyrant. Tyr advises that the kitchen should be informed of her preferences and then suggests bringing in a sous chef. Hearing this, the lady thought that she was confused because she knew that she ate everything except cucumbers, and she did not understand where this concern had come from. The princess thought that the emperor was clearly up to something. The cook approached the lady and said that he welcomed Her Majesty and then asked what she would like. Alicia was surprised because the cook is a woman, and she is her old friend whom she missed unbearably. The lady understands that despite the obvious changes, she did not recognize her at once, and it could not be otherwise, and Alicia did not think that they would meet so soon. And as soon as she saw her, her soul became lighter. She became interested in how she chewed all these 7 years. Tyr turns to the princess and asks if she believes in coincidences. Then he says that any coincidences he's encountered before were just staged by other people, and he wonders if there's really room for real coincidences in her life. The emperor says that from now on, they will dine together. The main character heard this, was surprised, and then said that he was a very busy man. Tyr offers the lady to move closer to him, and then he turns to the manager and asks to prepare the princess's chambers on the same floor as his room. Hearing this, the main character was surprised because she thought that it was not enough for them to eat together and now they will live together, and she does not understand why events are unfolding so quickly. She wonders why he suddenly became interested in her. The butler informs His Highness that the room will be prepared for the following day, and at this time the lady wondered whether there really was a place for a real coincidence in her life. Alicia doesn't understand why he changed so suddenly and why he started speaking in riddles. The surprised maid asks her if Your Highness is okay. since she was worried that her mistress was always so thoughtful. The princess remembered that Mary had not yet left and she had not even noticed her presence. And then she replies that everything is fine and suggests that she go. Mary turns to Her Highness and apologizes for bothering her with this conversation, but she must tell her about His Majesty's childhood, and then asks if she could listen to her because she has something important to tell. The maid explains that they are forbidden to mention this topic, but she must know about it. The princess says she is only too glad to listen, and then asks if she is not taking a risk. The girl replies that she will hope for the princess's favor. The main character looked at the maid and saw that she was shaking with excitement. And then she thanks her for deciding to do this and convinces her that they will keep this conversation a secret. The lady invites the maid to sit down as she believes that this conversation is important, and at that moment the lady thought that she did not know why she had considered it necessary to tell her about it, but she understood that thanks to the maid, she could find out what had happened here in her absence. Mary reports that no one knows when it began and that during the event His Majesty was kept an eye on by one servant. Hearing this, the princess thought that she had immediately turned the conversation in this direction and did not understand why. The maid says that His Majesty spent his childhood in the villa in complete solitude, and that maid was the only one with whom he could share warm feelings. However, after one accident, the prince became completely fixated on her. The main character understands that she died then, and she wonders what happened. Mary says that after His Majesty awakened from the powerful force of fire, some aristocrats wanted to get closer to him using his unhealthy attachment. He hated the aristocrats for this reckless attempt. The princess asks what they did. The maid replies that His Majesty had awakened an unimaginable power hitherto unknown, even to the imperial family, and had personally ascended the throne. He did not tolerate mistakes and had enormous power concentrated in his hands. Trying to grab the string, to pull the new baked emperor in the aristocrat's head came the manual decision. They began to look for similar girls and send them to serve the emperor in the palace. The gentlemen naively thought that nothing bad would happen, and they believed that this would soften the emperor's heart. Mary says that it didn't work, and all those involved were killed. Hearing this, the main character doesn't understand what they were hoping for. After this incident, rumors spread that the relationship between His Majesty and that servant was terrible. Subsequently, such incidents did not occur. The maid says that she knows that she is crossing the border, but she is worried that His Majesty will take out his anger on the princess, well, like it was with those aristocrats. Alicia tells the maid that she thinks she shouldn't worry since she didn't come to this palace of her own free will. The princess asks if she is worried about Togo getting close to Rude. The maid answers that no one has ever dared to stroke him before, and now, besides His Majesty, there is another person whom he obeys. And she says that unfortunately or not, she mentioned his name. Mary says that anyone who knew his name was a thorn in His Majesty's side, which he quickly got rid of. At this time, the main character thought that if this is true, then now she understands why her maid is so worried, and she didn't even know Ruda was ironing. Lolly was pretending to be, and she imagines how Tyr looked at this from the side. Alicia asks if that's why he's so mad about her. Mary replies that she doesn't know what His Majesty is thinking, but she feels like she's an exception to him. Hearing this, the main character thought about what it means he is not going to kill her. However, she is very worried, but she is sure that for him, she is an exceptional case, and she believes that otherwise he would have dealt with her long ago. The princess wonders if this is really true, and she wonders if he just wants to make sure of something or use her to put pressure on the kingdom. The next morning, the maid asks Her Highness how she slept. Then she says that it has been raining outside since the morning. The lady asks if they will go for a walk today. Mary turns to the lady and says that yesterday she allowed herself liberty and therefore asks for forgiveness if she caused her trouble. The princess tells her not to apologize. Then she explains that she was just thinking about the rain. The maid asks the mistress if they can go to the library of the main palace because she heard that there are very interesting books there. The lady replies that they will have breakfast and go to the library, and at that time she thought that if there are many different books there, then perhaps she will find a clue for herself. When the main character came to the library, she says that its size is really impressive. Mary reports that during the reconstruction of the palace, the library also increased in size. The maid says that when His Majesty ascended the throne by force, that part of the palace was destroyed. Hearing this, the main character realized that these books were delivered after. Mary says the fire only spread to the 3rd floor and there was no damage to the 1st floor. After hearing this, the princess became interested in something. She thought that it would be worth looking for it in the history book of the empire. After all, the mysterious power inherited only by the imperial family is capable of maintaining power on the imperial throne, and the princess also became interested in where this power comes from and whether it has an end. Alicia started reading about it, but suddenly she saw a man and thought that she hadn't even felt his presence, and she wondered how long he had been standing there. The man apologizes for scaring her, and then explains that he didn't mean to. The guy says that his name is Eden Riat. Hearing this name, the main character thought that it was very familiar, and she could not remember it. The princess says that her name is Alicia and she comes from the kingdom of Ashtad. The guy says that it is a great honor for him to meet her Princess Alicia. She replies that it is an honor for her too, and at that moment she thought that they were communicating too formally. And then she says that she is glad to meet the knight. The lady tells us that these are habits that she has retained from her childhood, and she cannot adapt to a new life. Eden replies that he has not been knighted, and therefore suggests that they address him by his first name. Eden says that he noticed a book in the princess's hands, and then asks if she was interested in the history of the empire. The lady explains that this book simply attracted her gaze, and at that moment she thought that some strange atmosphere had come over her. The guy says that he plucked up his courage and decided to talk to her first, and that it was the first time for him, and to be honest, he felt a little awkward. Hearing this, the main character thought that he was shy. Eden says it must have been easy getting here, then asks how she's feeling. The princess replies that everything is fine and tells him not to worry. He apologizes for being annoying and therefore believes that he should value her personal space, and then says that he will be glad to meet her again. When the guy left, the princess looked after him and thought that he was somehow strange. And when Eden closed the door, she began to carefully study the history of the empire. However, its foundations seemed like a fairy tale to the princess, and at a time when many countries were involved in endless wars, an immortal being with extraordinary strength appeared and fell in love with a man. This creature cared for him and was worried about the survival of its man in this bloodthirsty world, and to protect him, it united several kingdoms into one large empire, and so the Empire of Fodia was born. The main character reflects on the fact that who would have thought that she would be found behind history books, and she understands that the man with this creature is the founder of the imperial family. Alicia understands that this explains why the power of fire is exceptional. However, she wonders why an immortal creature died before man. The next day, the emperor announces that a hunting tournament will begin in a week, and she will also take part in it. The princess was surprised to hear this. He asks if she can ride a horse. Alicia replies that she has been lying in bed for a very long time and has therefore completely lost the habit of active activity. The emperor says that it turns out she will be on her own 2 feet. Hearing this, she thinks that it has already been decided for her that she will participate, and then he asks if girls mount horses at a hunting tournament because he thinks that they are just watching. Tyr asks in surprise why she thought the girl was just being watched and then says that she is old-fashioned. The emperor says that he still hopes that she will manage to capture someone, and it will be good if they don't eat her. At this time, the girl became interested in why he was going to send her on a hunting trip, and she agreed and said that she would ask Oscar to teach her horseback riding. Hearing this, the emperor says that he will teach her personally and suggests starting tomorrow. The princess agrees with him. At this time, she thought that if she had known that everything would turn out like this, she would have immediately said that she could not. The next day, the princess asks Mary what the rules are for the upcoming hunting tournament. The maid answers that the one who catches the most prey before sunset will be the winner. The first place will be given a lot of jewelry and a monetary reward. The winner also has the right to give up his place to another. Mary explains that it is most likely to be an honor, and this often happens between lovers. The princess says that it turns out that aristocrats will gather there. Mary says that especially since this year's debut season was temporarily cancelled due to the war with the kingdom of Tahel, and many will want to make up for lost time. The lady says that the debutant season has not yet arrived. The maid asks Her Highness if she has made her debut yet. The princess replies that unfortunately she didn't make it, because she missed her debut while in a coma, and so there was no official debut. As they walked down the corridor, a man approached Her Highness and said that he had heard that she was learning to ride today. She replied that it was true. At this time, the main character thought that she was the main character of the original in the debut season this year, and perhaps she will show herself in the hunting tournament. She wonders what will happen when Tyr meets her. Suddenly, Tyr turns to the princess and says that one would think that she is going to war. Seeing him, the lady greeted His Majesty. At this time, Alicia reflects on the fact that in her head, she understands that this is no longer the same little Tyr, but in her heart, she continues to believe in it. The main character does not understand why he spoke to her. If he cut off her greeting so rudely, she wonders if he forgot how he held her hand. However, she believes that Togo Tyr is no more. His Majesty turns to the girl and says that the sun will set while she is standing here. Then he suggests that she hurry since they do not have much time. The main character does not understand why she expects something from him, and then she gets upset because of unjustified expectations. She believes that even if there is a drop of kindness left in Tyr's heart, she is not the person to whom he would show it. When Alicia saw the horse, she was surprised because it was very big. Oscar explains that this little guy is His Majesty's dark horse, and he hasn't given him a name, so that's what they call him. The girl says she understands, and the guy says that it's just like that wolf. Seeing them, His Majesty turns to Oscar and tells him to stop wagging his tongue and follow them until the training is completed. Hearing this, the main character does not understand where he gets so much anger from, and therefore she thinks that poor Oscar and he should not have opened his mouth. Tyr turns to the princess and invites her to come and mount the horse. The girl asks in surprise why so soon. He asks if she wants to. At this time, the main character thought about what kind of contemptuous look he has, and then she says to look how big he is. His Majesty took the girl by the waist and then lifted her onto the horse. At this time, she thought about how he lifted her so easily and why Tyr was so strong, and when she sat on the horse, the Emperor sat with her. She wondered if they would be together all this time. Tyr suggests that the lady should cross her leg to the other side and then asks her if anything bothers her. He suggests that the princess hold on tightly so as not to fall. The main character recalls that she and Tyr always wanted to saddle up horses and ride away, and although she imagined something different, it can be said that they realized their long-time dream. The Emperor turns to the princess and asks if he could swear to grant her one wish. What would she ask for? The girl asks for a wish. He says that he can wish for absolutely anything. Alicia doesn't understand why he's asking her such a question, and thinks that he's probably testing her again. The princess says that she would like him to allow her to correspond with her family. The young gentleman asks if that is all. The lady replies that that is all for now. The girl looked at the guy and thought about why he was so upset, and then she says that not very often and a couple of times a month would be enough for her, and she wants to write to them that she is okay. The princess explains that their youngest daughter was in a coma for 7 years, and upon awakening, she immediately became a hostage of another country, and she is sure that they really want to hear about it. Alicia says that even though she didn't get to spend much time with the family, she saw how much she meant to each of them, and that's why she doesn't want them to worry. The Emperor says that if that is her wish, he will allow her to send them letters twice a month, but in return, she must show him a worthy result at the upcoming tournament. The princess asks if he means she should catch the prey. He replies that if she wants something, she should prove to him that she deserves it, and asks if she shot her confidence. Hearing this, the main character thought that, as expected, he would not agree so easily. And then she answers that they agreed since she has nothing to lose anyway, and she claims that she will try. Tyr thought that he can't understand this girl, and he thinks that for such a trivial desire she is ready to step over herself. And then he says that he is already in anticipation of the princess, and therefore he offers to begin their training. The Emperor asks how she plans to hunt if she doesn't even realize how serious this undertaking is. He helps her off her horse, then touches her hair, and says that he will gradually train her. At this time, the main character remembered Mary's words about her being an exception to him and his contradictory attitude. The woman turns to the princess's maid and tells her to tell her about her. She also wants to know how she is doing. Mary replies that it is the same as always, and she is learning to ride with His Majesty and dines with him. The maid reports that she shows no interest in him. Suddenly, the lady grabs the maid by the hair and asks what her function is and what it is. She wonders if she serves as furniture, and she wonders if she has forgotten why she is assigned to her. The lady screams and says that the princess must disappear from His Majesty's sight. Mary replies that she will try, but the princess is too good. After these words, the lady hits the girl in the face and says that she is a fool. Sarila asks that it turns out that the head maid overestimated her, and then claims that if she does not carry out her orders, she promises that she will not find work anymore. Countess Ante tells Lady Sarila to calm down. She claims that this servant is not doing her job. The head maid says that the appearance of the maids is of the utmost importance. Their reputation should not be tarnished in such a stupid way. On hearing this, the lady says she never thought of it, and then says that Countess Ante is very prudent. The head maid says that enough recklessness and suggests that she give the order. Sarila turns to Mary and says that she has a small task to do at the hunting tournament, and at any cost to lure this girl into the forest labyrinth, and then says that she thinks she can handle this task. Hearing this, the maid thought that the forest labyrinth was a dangerous and remote place. The lady took the whip and said that now they will move on to punishment. When the maid saw, she asked that it just not be hers. Sarila orders one to lift her skirt, and then she begins to be a servant. The next morning, while in the forest, Alicia says that they were lucky that the weather on the day of the tournament was so favorable. Mary was putting on her mistress's boots and said that she had finished. The mistress thanked her, but noticed that the maid was acting differently and asking if she was hurt. The lady says that she thought she was limping and pale today. The maid explains that she just twisted her ankle. Alicia says that Oscar will accompany her further and therefore send her to the doctor. Hearing this, the maid says that everything is fine and she should not do this. At this time, the main character thought that the maid was acting very strangely today, and she understands that caution is her strong point, but Mary seemed to be scared of something today. The princess turns to the maid and says that she is counting on her. At this time, the maid thinks that her mistress is so kind to her that she cannot do such a thing. However, she understands that if she does not do this, then it will be the end for her. Mary apologizes and then asks Her Highness if she has heard of the forest labyrinth. The maid reports that he is in the Eastern Palace, and there is always a mysterious atmosphere there. And she heard that in the forest there is a beautiful villa hidden from prying eyes. Mary says that the road there is very confusing, and that is why no one tries to find it. And they say that in this villa any worries cease to matter. And then she says that if the lady wants, she can try to find it. Hearing this, the main character thought that Mary was talking about the very place where Tyr spent his childhood with her, although she understands that the rumors are embellished, but in the middle of the dense forest, this villa is really simply impossible to find. The princess doesn't understand why she started talking about it and thinks that something is clearly wrong here, and she says that she will drop by there if she has time. Alicia remembers that she spent several years there, and therefore believes that she can safely pass the danger. And then she turns to Mary and thanks her for telling her. The main character looked at the maid and thought that she was trembling like the last autumn leaf, and thought that there must be a reason for this. After these words, Mary thought that she had done something wrong, and that it could harm her beautiful mistress, and then she turns to Her Highness and says what really happened. But suddenly Oscar comes into their tent and says that His Majesty will arrive soon. The captain says that other nobles have also already gathered and therefore suggests that the princess go quickly. The lady says that he may not accompany her. Hearing this, he says that he hopes that she has not forgotten that he is responsible for her protection, and he suggests that she not say such things again. Oscar wonders if he can leave her alone among these aristocrats. This is the first official event in the empire for so long, and even a princess in their place would be uneasy about the presence of an outsider, and she understands that she should not forget that for them, she is only a prisoner. The main character does not understand why Tyr insisted that she participate in this tournament, and therefore she thinks that maybe this is one of his ways to mock her. Oscar informs the princess that His Imperial Majesty has arrived. Sitting on the throne, Tyr says that their empire has not held official events for a long time, and so he knows how everyone has been waiting for the opening of the hunting tournament, and so he hopes that each of them will honor him with a worthy result in the upcoming hunt. Alicia looked at Tyr and thought that on this stage, he really did seem like an emperor. For a moment, the girl thought they had just met each other's eyes. However, the emperor immediately looked the other way. He says that if all the participants have finished their preparations, they can go to the tournament area. The main character does not understand why he turned away from her so rudely, and then she reassures herself that if they did not meet eyes, then nothing terrible happened. Suddenly, Alicia is pushed by the girl with pink hair, who then apologizes and explains that she didn't notice her. The lady replies that it's nothing to worry about, but when she looked at her hair, she remembered that in front of her was the main character of the novel, Lady Riyadh. The young ladies crowd around Riyadh and ask if she is also making her debut this year. She replies that she is very excited about her upcoming debut. The brown-haired girl says that Riyadh is sweet when she is embarrassed. The girl thanks her for the compliment, and her friend says that it is no wonder that the Marquise of Riyadh is so protective of her. At this time, the main character thought that of course she guessed that she would appear, but still did not imagine that it would be unexpected. The main character of the novel, the only dream Ariada Riyadh. According to the plot, she is to become the emperor's chosen one. The princess thought that her aura reminded her very much of the aura of that guy from the Eden Library. And then she guessed that he was a marquis. And she thinks that she saw right through that she recognized something was wrong. Alicia ponders what she heard, that because of the hunting tournament, many aristocrats visited the palace, and she wonders why he did not tell her his title. At this time, the emperor comes to her and asks what she is thinking about. Hearing this, the main character does not understand how long he has been here. He says that she is in the clouds as usual. The princess replies that she was simply thinking about tactics for the upcoming hunt, and says that perhaps she will go. Suddenly, the emperor blocks her way with his hand and tells her to stop, and then asks where she is going. At this time, the lady does not understand why he got so carried away, and she does not like it, and she also wonders why he is doing this to her. She asks His Majesty, what is wrong? The emperor says that she was going hunting and did not even take her sword with her, and besides, he did not have time to give her permission to use a hunting bow. At this time, the main character remembered that she often caught animals when they ran out of food, and then she tells His Majesty that she will think of something. Tyr says she doesn't have a plan and asks how she's going to show him a decent result. The emperor gives her a small light sword and says he hopes she will be comfortable with it. He then suggests that she be careful not to cut herself. The lady says she is not that clumsy, and then they heard the sound of Surma, and he says it has begun. The princess says that she will go now and thanks him for the sword. He turns to her and says that if she feels unwell, then she should immediately return back, and he also tells her to avoid injuries and not to cause him trouble. Every time they dined together, Tyr was silent on the sly watching her, and when their eyes met he abruptly turned away, and the main character does not understand whether this is his interest or precaution, and so she cannot figure it out. Oscar asks Her Highness if she can mount a horse herself. The lady replies that she can. Then she says that she will demonstrate her riding skills which she learned from His Majesty. Suddenly the main character heard her maid calling her, and a few minutes later Mary appeared in front of her, who asked her mistress to wait for her. The lady asks the maid in surprise why she came here. She apologizes and says that she has something very important to tell her. The captain tells them not to go far. Alicia asks what happened. Then she says that she twisted her ankle and doesn't understand why she came running here. The maid says that the forest labyrinth that she told her about, and then asks her not to go there. Mary explains that the villa has been abandoned for a long time, and one wrong turn and she will be lost, and the place has become a haven only for wild animals. And then she apologizes and says that she understands that she is beyond forgiveness. The maid screams and asks her mistress not to go into that forest, and then she says that she is ready to bear any punishment. The mistress says that she will not go to that forest and suggests that the maid calm down, and then asks what punishment she is talking about. And at that moment she thought that there is clearly a third party involved. The princess ponders that someone has been inciting her to harm her. Mary tells her that as soon as the tournament is over, she will tell her everything. The main character thought that she nevertheless repented and confessed, and then she suggests Mary to leave and says that they will see each other soon. Oscar says that the maid was in a hurry and asks what happened. The princess replies that nothing special and suggests leaving, and at that moment she thought that she should find out who was behind this. When the princess rode with the knight, the aristocrats did not even guess who this lady was. One of them says that he sees her for the first time and therefore thinks that he should greet her. The man mounts his horse and then rides up to them and asks the knight how he is doing. Hearing this, the main character thought that this was a friend of the Verlick. The stranger says that it is a pity for him since the venerable Mr. Verlick does not wish to respond to his greeting. The man says his name is Andrea and he is the eldest son of the Marquis of Cadio. He turns to the lady and asks if she doesn't mind if he can know her name. The princess replies that her name is Alicia Ashtat. Hearing this, Andre was surprised and asked if she was the princess the emperor had brought. Then he smiled and said that the prisoner was participating in an event for aristocrats, and he did not think that His Majesty would be so lenient. At this time, the main character thought that she expected such a reaction, but she still felt unpleasant. Oscar says that he really doesn't understand how His Majesty allowed scum like him to participate. Hearing this, Andre asks what he just said. Verlick replies that he heard him absolutely correctly and thinks that he should be noble for such leniency. The princess thought that they were not friends. Andre, crying out, asks if he thinks he can do anything because he is under His Majesty's wing. Then he suggests not to cross the line because his family won't be able to protect him every time. Oscar pulled out his sword and screamed, asking how dare he say such a thing. Suddenly, the emperor rode up to them and told them to stop. Then he asked what was going on. He said that instead of hunting, they decided to have a chat. Seeing His Majesty, the main character thought that he had arrived on time, and she does not understand why he is always so punctual, and as if he is being observed from the side. Tyr saw a stranger in the forest holding a bow in his hands. He turns to the princess and suggests that she go to him. The girl does not understand why there is such a hurry. He screams and tells her to go faster. However, the lady does not understand why he did it so suddenly. The operator says that she was being careful. At this time, an arrow flew past the girl, which wounded the horse. And when the animal felt the pain, it immediately ran in an unknown direction. The emperor saw the horse, which was uncontrollable, and suggested that Oscar gather the knights and follow him. And at that moment, he thought that if he had known, he would not have allowed her to participate in the tournament. Tyr cannot catch up with the princess and realizes that she is moving further and further away from him. The emperor asks the lady to stop, and at that moment he saw Lali, and he does not understand why at that moment she appeared before his eyes. His Majesty reflects that he knows how chaotic the thoughts in his deranged head can be, but now they seem to be beyond his control, and he does not want to lose her again. Saw the princess's horse. He realized that it had been attacked by wild animals, and he wondered where it had run off to. Suddenly the emperor saw a large wolf, but he quickly reacted and pulled out a sword with which he killed the animal. His Majesty thought that perhaps this animal had attacked the princess. However, he saw no trace of it here, and the princess must have simply run away. The young gentleman convinces himself that she is fine. Well, after walking a few meters, he sees a tree in which there was a hole, and he remembers his nanny who brought him a delicious fruit, a peach. Lali suggested him to make this place their secret refuge. At this time, Tyr remembered that he and Lali had found this place many years ago, and no one except them knew about it. The emperor thought that if she ended up here, he didn't care who she was, and the main thing was that she remained unharmed. The princess heard her name and someone calling her, and when she opened her eyes, she realized that she was lying on the ground and remembered that she had tripped and fallen. Alicia saw the emperor. He asks in surprise if she is okay and is interested in whether she is injured. The girl replies that everything is fine. Then she asks why his face and clothes are covered in red liquid. The princess asks if the beast fell on him. Tyr hugs the girl and says that he is very glad that she is okay, and then says that he was afraid that he lost her again. At this time, the main character thought that he hugged her too tightly and she can't get out. Tyr tells her not to move for at least a minute. At this time, the main character thought that she could feel the beating of his heart, and she wondered if he was really that worried about her. Alicia felt pain in her leg, and the young gentleman asks what is wrong and wonders if she is hurt. The girl says that she thinks she sprained her ankle when she fell. The emperor says that this is not good and then takes her in his arms and carries her through the forest. The lady assures him that she can still walk. He tells her not to worry as she is light and feather-like, so it is not much of a problem for him. Hearing this, the main character thought that this was not why she was worried and did not understand how he could joke at such a moment. Tyr asks if she is in pain anywhere other than her ankle. Then he looks at her and says that she is blushing and asks if she has a fever. She says that everything is fine and smiles. The emperor says he will take her to a doctor. She will receive compensation for this incident, and then he says he will give her whatever she wants. At that moment, Alicia saw a strong conviction in Tyr's eyes, and this only confused her even more. In the evening, His Majesty inquires about the princess's condition. The doctor reports that he has reduced the swelling with magic, but she needs to rest for a week. At this time, Tyr thought about these echoes of the past that inadvertently popped up in his head, and at first he thought that it was just a coincidence, and it seemed to him that he had completely gone crazy. Sitting by the princess's bed, the emperor thought that there are no such natural coincidences in the world, and he understands that unless it is the same person. His Majesty remembers the first time he saw Lali. She was a very nice lady who greeted him and told him that she would now serve him. Her smile was brighter than the morning sun, and Lali was very different from all the servants who had ever worked in this villa, and at first they too tried to be polite and courteous. But this pretense did not last long. His Majesty understands that only one Lali was sincere with him, and she always took care of him. When the little boy saw Sadna on her face, he wondered if someone had beaten her again. The girl replied that she had simply tripped and fallen. However, he claimed that she was lying. Lali explains that her arms hurt a little, but if she gets enough rest, she'll be as fit as a fiddle. Tyr says he is sure it is because she serves a prince who is of no use to anyone, and he reflects that if she did not serve him, she would be treated differently. The young gentleman recalls that before he could even come to his senses, everyone who served him disappeared, but the girl assured him that she was fine and suggested that he not worry. The little boy suggests to the nanny that they leave here before it's too late, and then says that he can handle it himself, and at that moment he thinks that at least this time everything can be different. Lali turns to the little gentleman and tells him that she will not leave him, and then she says that she does not know how he is, but without him, she will cry every night from longing for her prince. The emperor reflects that Lali was a ray of sunshine that illuminated his dark heart. The girl says that she found some delicious fruit by the river and then asks him if he wants her to bake him a fruit pie, and she makes him feel needed. Tyr. Remembering that evening when he came to her room, he noticed that her bed was not made, and he wondered where she had gone, and he also wondered if she had left him too. Waken, standing on the window, says that it's a pity, but he's too late, and explains that he barely found their trail and there's no sign of elves there, only children. The advisor asks what this death aura is and wonders why they did this to the maid. The boy screaming asks what he did to the Lali. Wacken says that such a little boy has such a temper, and even without awakening his powers, the imperial blood circulates in him. Wacken explains that it wasn't his plan, but it would be nice to use the prerogatives of the imperial family. At this time, the little boy's eyes changed color and the room became very bright. The little gentleman looks at the advisor and tells him to answer where Lali is while he is alive. Wacken, looking at the young master and does not understand how he managed to awaken his power at such a moment, and he understands that the girl who served him and they were close. Tyr, so that he would answer before he turned him into ashes. The advisor screaming claims that he is mistaken and assures that it was not him, and he suggests that he put out his fire since it will really kill him, and then he will certainly never find the soul of his servant again. The young gentleman asks what he is talking about. The elf says that his guts were almost boiled. Tyr asks what he meant by her soul, and does he mean that Lali died? He says that only half, and he doesn't know why he targeted her, but an elf used a spell that separated her soul from her body, and even if he got rid of the shell, her soul is still alive, and so he thinks that most likely the elves took it. Wacken says he's half-elf, and he has a personal score to settle with them, and he was trying to find their sanctuary. Then he claims he now has a motive to find the alphas. Then he asks if he wants to join him. The young master says that he must first regain his place in the empire, because he believes that Lali must be safe when she returns home so that he can protect her next time. At this time, the main character became interested in how long she had slept, and she understands that because of the healing magic, she fell into a very deep sleep. Tyr asks the lady if she is awake. Alicia asks the gentleman since when he has been here. He replies that since last night. The main character thought that he had been sitting here while she had spun and therefore hoped that she had not been snoring. The emperor asks how she feels. The girl replies that everything seems to be fine, and the bruise was not serious. The young gentleman claims that the little thing was bruised and nearly lost her life, and then he says that, well, he's glad she's okay. And then he asks if there's anything else bothering her other than her ankle. Alicia explains that she just fell and hurt it, and at that moment she thought he just called her Lali. The emperor says that she is coming out. She did not fall off her horse. The lady explains that she was running fast, and so she thought she would fall. But as soon as they entered the forest, she slowed down a little and she got off her horse and felt strange. Seeing a passage in the trunk, the princess ran across it to the other side. His Majesty asks if anything strange had happened before. The girl replies that she doesn't think so, except for one time when someone tried to lure her into the forest using Mary, and she wonders who and most importantly why they needed it. The main character thought that she should first talk directly to Mary. The lady remembers that she took with her the arrow that hit the horse. Tyr reports that the maids took her clothes, so he will send someone to inspect them. Alicia says that as soon as she wiped the blood off the tip, she noticed a strange mark and is confident that this will help them find the shooter. The emperor asks how she came up with the idea to take an arrow with her in all that chaos. Then he says he will take care of everything and suggests the princess rest. The lady thanked him and thought about how he called her princess again, and she remembered how he spoke to her in the forest and thought about how he acted as if he had found something he had lost long ago. The main character doesn't understand what it was, and in her head, as if everything is confused, she reflects on the fact that this incident is very similar to what happened to the main character in the original. Ariada's horse was shot, and the main character herself was on the verge of death. Realizing that the arrow was the key to solving the assassination attempt, she took the tip with her, and that arrow was smeared with the juice of the foci plant, which has a stimulating effect. Alicia thinks that everything was so ambiguous that she somehow accidentally took the arrow with her. However, she does not want to get ahead of herself, but if everything that happened to the main character will happen to her from now on, then she should be extremely careful. The princess reflects on the fact that Duke Jouvert, previously guilty of killing a low-ranking aristocrat, is switching to her, and she believes that if everything that happened to the main character will now happen to her, and therefore she should be extremely careful. The Duke of Jouvert is one of the most influential aristocrats of the empire, Affec Jouvert. The current head of the family is engaged in the illegal theft of funds allocated for military benefits, and all his attention is focused on the foci plant. The Duke is well aware of the stimulating properties of this plant, and since it is a sought-after product on the market, temporarily increasing a person's physical performance, he makes a living by distributing this product in the form of juice, completely monopolizing the potion market. However, one of his customers had an accident and one of the duchy's vassals died after drinking the juice. Duke of Jouvert hushed up this incident and destroyed the remains of the foci, and as it would seem, everything should end there. But one of the maids stole the juice of focia, which the Duke had kept for a rainy day, and used it to harm Ariada. Because of this incident, the Tyrs finally opened their eyes to all the crimes of Duke Jouvert. His true motive was to marry his daughter to the emperor. To get rid of the main character and eliminate his only obstacle, he decided to take her out of the game. But because of the traces of foci left behind, which revealed the secret activities of the Duke, he failed to do so. That is why the main character is worried that she will have to face all this. And besides, Alicia is not even the main character, but just a weak-willed captive, I am sure, and he will consider her an easy target. Mary enters her mistress's room and asks if she is awake and how she slept. Then she says that His Majesty was near all night, and that is why she did not dare to look in. At this time, the main character thought that the maid had come earlier than usual today, and thought that apparently she had slept very poorly. Mary says that if something is bothering her, she can call the doctor. The lady replies that everything is fine and they have one pressing issue. The maid turns to Her Highness and asks her to forgive her, and then she explains that she was ordered. To lure her into the forest. However, the maid knows that her mistress does not deserve to die in this God-forsaken place. Mary claims that she did not want her lady to be harmed. The princess asks who gave her such an order. She replies that she will tell her everything. The maid reports that she was ordered to do so, head maid Chloe and Cyrilla maid Volt. The maid explains that at first she simply reported to them how she spent her leisure time, but then they ordered her to make sure that she did not catch the eye of His Majesty, but in the end they began to incite her to commit the irreparable. At this time, Alicia thought that if this was their doing, then she got into the same incident as the main character. Mary says that she has committed a mortal sin. Then she explains that she would never have dared to do such a thing, and therefore asks to be punished as befits her. The princess thought that the maid could not refuse the order, and therefore she understood her perfectly. However, she still decided to confess to her, risking her own life. The main character understands that the maid knew that punishment awaited her, but still trusted her. Alicia turns to Mary and says she has a favor to ask of her. Then she asks who, if not her, deserves redemption. The maid says she will do whatever she orders her to do. The lady suggests that she tell the maid Cyrilla that the princess took with her the arrow that hit the horse. The main character thought that the fishing rod had been dropped and all she had to do was wait for the catch. And if she really took the place of the main character, then she knows the plot in advance, but does not understand why everything turned out this way. Mary turns to Her Highness and asks what else she can do for her. Hearing this, the princess thought that she was worried about Mary, who could once again expose herself to danger. And all this because she got involved with the tear. A few hours later, the emperor entered the princess's room again and asked how she was feeling and whether she could get up. At this point, the lady thought that he was dead, and then she got up from the bed and greeted His Majesty. He suggests that she refrain from these formalities, and then he says that he sees that she is already standing confidently on her feet. The princess wondered what had brought him here. Tyr was silent, and she thought that this was the first time she had seen him so unsure. And after the hunt, something inside him seemed to click, and she no longer felt any caution on his part. The emperor says that he wanted to see her sooner and missed Lolly. Hearing this, the princess asks in surprise if he missed her. The young gentleman replies that he missed Lolly. At this time, the main character does not understand how he found out. The emperor asks if she is Lolly, and he is interested in whether he is telling the truth. Alicia smiles and then asks what His Majesty is talking about and who Lolly is, and after these words she smiles. Tyr says that, judging by her violent reaction to the name, she's just being funny here. The girl saw his gaze and thought that he clearly hated her, and therefore she needed to calm down and could not give in. The main character explains that she has been in a coma for the last 7 years, and she still has a hard time adjusting and reacting to certain situations correctly. And she is also sorry, but she does not understand what he is talking about. The emperor says that it's okay, and that's enough for today, and then turns around and wants to leave. At this time, the lady thought about how she got away with it. She wondered if he had sensed something was wrong at the tournament, and therefore he thinks that she shouldn't have hidden in their secret hideout. His Majesty turns around and tells the girl that they will see each other at dinner. He thought that he made the right decision to tell her this directly and hoped that she will not avoid him. After all, he is happy that he finally met her. The headmaid asks Cyrilla why she used the fochi juice without her knowledge. The maid apologizes to her aunt and explains that she thought it would be better that way. The maid says that they must take the tip from the princess at all costs because she understands that if something goes wrong, he too could be in danger. Cyrilla claims that she will do everything, and at that time she thought that all this really irritates her, and if this bastard had not captured the arrow, then there would have been no problems. Cyrilla believes that she was born a princess and therefore thinks that Alicia can hang around the emperor. And although Mary assured her that this is not so, she is sure that the princess has definitely fallen for him. The maid reflects that she would not mind if the daughter of the Duke of Jouvert became empress, but not this upstart, and therefore she must get rid of her. The Emperor asks the advisor if there are any test results. He replies that there aren't any yet, but that they'll have to wait about 4 more days. Wacken asks what happened as the Emperor looks worried. His Majesty asks if he remembers saying that after the princess woke up, he noticed a small distortion in space near the kingdom of Ashtad. The advisor asks if His Majesty has any guesses. He replies that he is sure it is connected with the Lali. Wacken asks if the princess is the one he has been looking for so long, and he wonders if he has noticed any similarities in their behavior. The Emperor claims that they are like 2 peas in a pod. Tyr says that people's habits can be similar but not identical, and it seems to him that Lali is inside she has not yet awakened. The advisor asks if he has ever broached the subject with her. He wonders if he should have done so. Wacken says that as soon as his heart fluttered, he immediately went and laid out all the cards for her, and then he suggests putting himself in her place. And if she is not a Lali, he suggests imagining what impression he made on her. And the important thing is that they do not know what the elf did with her soul after he separated it from her body. The Emperor claims that this does not exclude a positive development. The advisor agrees with him, and then suggests listening to him carefully. The Emperor took the box that contained the necklace. He remembered that his mother had given it to him and said that it would be his cherished wish, and therefore he should never lose it. Tyr says that because of the elven blood that runs through his veins since birth, he has had a hard life. And then Lali appeared like a ray of light in the impenetrable darkness, and they will pay for separating her from her. The Emperor claims that if it suddenly emerges somewhere who the princess really is, then who knows what the elves will throw at them this time, since he does not understand their motives. But one thing is for sure, they were hunting for her soul. Wacken looked and said that he sees the Lord is full of confidence. He claims that he will never confuse his Lali with someone else. The advisor says that there are 2 options. Then the first is that she hasn't realized anything yet, and the second is that she has a reason why she can't confess. The young gentleman asks what the reason might be. Wacken explains that perhaps she knows about the rumors about him, about his quirks with her name, and asks him to remember how he behaves with her alone. The silver-haired man thinks that she is afraid of him, and that is why she does not say anything about it. Hearing this, Tyr thought that he was kind. Wacken agrees with him and says that he will give him time to figure it all out himself. The Emperor does not understand what he should do and how he can get closer to Lali. Hearing this, the advisor says that he has a healthy forehead and then asks if he is really serious when he asks this. The young master asks if he looks like a joker. Wacken suggests that he first show her his positive sides, since in the eyes of the princess he is now a tyrant, and also that he spend more time with her, talk, be interested in her life, and he should find out that she likes to make her laugh in the end. The advisor believes that he will gradually find a way to her heart, and then he says that he must be careful with her feelings, Lali. And if it is really her, then soon they will find the elven trail, and he suggests that he should not doubt it. The man reports that his servant has been found, and all that remains is to protect the empire from the long-eared ones. The Emperor asks if they have any news. Wacken says that he is stuck in samsara and has been trying to find a trace for 100 years, but hasn't found anything yet, and so he thinks that maybe it's time to show their tail. Tyr suggests that perhaps they are afraid that with such a powerful emperor in power, any attempts may seem futile. Hearing this, the advisor thought that they were parasites, and he was pleased to know that they were restless, since one of the half-breeds whom they despised as a race became the ruler of a huge empire. And then Wacken suggests that the emperor deal with the princess. He will be glad if he turns to such a wise old man as he for advice. Tyr agrees with him and says that he has indeed lived long enough. Wacken looked at the emperor and, screaming, asked why he immediately took out his image, and then he claims that this is why the princess is afraid of him, and he says that he will not joke with him anymore and calls him a bore. At this time, the main character thought that she had barely brushed it off, and now it was only a matter of time before Tyr would finally and irrevocably understand everything. The girl doesn't understand how he even guessed, and she thinks that if suddenly he missed her. Suddenly, the main character heard a knock on the door and the maid apologizes for disturbing her. Alicia heard the voice and thought that it wasn't Mary. And judging by how quickly the reaction followed, they really do have ulterior motives. The main character reflects on the fact that although her thoughts are currently occupied with Tyr, it is time for her to return to reality, since her safety is now threatened not only by him. Cirilla turns to their highness and says that she is glad to welcome her and informs that from now on she will serve her. Alicia asks, surprised, what about Mary? Then she says that she didn't know she had been replaced. The maid explains that Mary has made an unforgivable mistake for which she must be punished, and therefore she will never serve her again. The princess asks in surprise what mistake this innocent girl made. Cyril replies that during the tournament, she was resting in a tent when she was supposed to accompany her. The lady says that she herself ordered her to rest because she had a serious injury, and then asks why no one informed her. The maid says that she understands her and therefore believes that Mary will nevertheless be punished. The princess asks if she can help her in any way. At this time, the maid thought that the mistress was not even indignant that she was introduced to a completely different servant, although she considers her a prisoner and does not understand what indignation is being discussed. Cirilla thought that she would solve this problem quite quickly, and then she said that there was one way. The lady asked which one. She answered that if she could find the culprit who shot the horse then, but she understood that it was quite difficult. Hearing this, the princess says that she just happened to have the tip with her. The maid says that this will help Mary avoid punishment and then asks if she can take a look. And at that moment, she thought that this stupid princess had immediately fallen for the hook. The lady explains that she gave the tip to His Majesty, but it's okay because she'll ask for it back. The emperor said he'd look into the matter personally, so she gave it to him. Hearing this, the maid became frightened because she knows that His Majesty is very strict. The princess asks the Cirilla, what is it? Because she thinks that she has some problems, and asks about it. The maid says she's fine and then says that if it's true, they'll find the culprit soon. Then she says she'll go and ask Mary some questions. Alicia watched the maid run quickly, then thought about how she ran with her tail up to destroy the evidence. And she understands that if they act, then definitely today. The main character turns to Oscar and asks if he can spare some time for her. He is surprised and asks what she wants to tell him. The lady explains that they need to discuss something. Late at night, Cirilla thought that if it came to that, she should get rid of the foci that she left behind, and she understands that if traces of this juice are found on the tip, then without proof, no one will send her to the scaffold. The maid thought about what she would tell her aunt later because she thought she would understand, and when she took the jar, she thought about how she could slip foci to the princess and make her look like a scoundrel as if she had started this whole mess to attract the emperor's attention. Suddenly, the maid heard a question about what it was. Alicia said that she had a bottle with an unusual color in her hands, and she asked if it was poison. The princess wonders what the Cirilla is holding in her hands. At this time, the maid does not understand how she ended up here. The lady asks if everything is okay and says that she has somehow turned pale. The captain approaches Cyril Volt and asks if she could assist them in investigating the assassination attempt on the princess, as they have received information that she is keeping prohibited items. Oscar says that first they will confiscate the bottle she is holding. The maid heard this screaming, suggested that they wait, and then explained that it was all a conspiracy, and she came here on her own business, and then she asked who had sung this nonsense. Mary replies that it was she, and she saw how the Cirilla hid the strange bottle. The maid looked at the maid and asked in surprise how she could. Mary explains that as soon as she said that the princess had captured the tip, she suddenly shifted it and took everything into her own hands. Cirilla screams, asking if she understands what kind of heresy she is now talking. The captain hears this and asks if she is threatening her. The maid says it's not fair because it's just a painkiller. Oscar says they'll find out during the investigation. Cirilla turns to the princess and asks if she planned all of this. She also wonders if she thinks she's better than others. Hearing this, Mary thought about how she was not ashamed to say such words. The princess says that if she is truly innocent, she will sincerely apologize. Then she asks what Cirilla will do otherwise. The main character says that her family's name will be tarnished forever and she will only have to rely on her mercy. And this will happen if she is still alive by that time. Alicia claims that if she is not guilty, then she has nothing to fear. And so he tells her not to worry, because they will judge fairly. And he tells her not to resist, because you do not want her to be hurt before her time. The maid screaming says that she knows nothing and then swears. A couple of hours ago, the main character quickly guessed that Cirilla was up to something and therefore told Oscar about everything. She gave the order to lure her into the forest labyrinth, and as soon as she admitted about the tip, she decided to deal with the problem herself. Alicia, she hadn't forgotten Mary's testimony about the strange bottle either. However, these were only guesses and conjectures. The real proof was Mary's behavior at the tournament. Not wanting to risk destroying the evidence, they agreed to act covertly. Initially, they wanted to get Focia's hidden juice, so Cirilla's arrest at the crime scene was unexpected and pleasant for her. The very next day, Tyr was also aware of it, and when the princess entered his office, he asked why she personally intervened and then said that it could be dangerous. The lady explains that she was worried about Mary, so she decided to go. And at that moment, she thought that he was so angry that she took everything upon herself. Tyr says that if she told him, he would be mad himself. Then he says that she hasn't even recovered yet, and he doesn't understand why she would put herself in danger. Then he asks if she was hurt. The main character looked at him and saw that his hair was tousled, and she wondered if he exploded as soon as he found out. She claims that she is fine, and then asks what will happen to Cirilla. The Emperor says that if the liquid she has is found to be forbidden, she will be sent to the scaffold, and besides that, substance explains a lot. The lady understands that if it really is Foci extract, then there will only be more problems, and she was able to save the evidence but completely forgot about the turn the investigation could take. Tyr claims that she has made a huge contribution. The girl replies that he is flattering. The Emperor asks if she thinks he is the type to flatter. Hearing this, the main character thought about what he said as if cutting off. At this time, the Emperor thought that he had wanted to praise her and did not understand whether he was not affectionate enough. The young gentleman says that he promised to pay her compensation for the incident at the hunting tournament, and then asks her to think about what she would like to receive. The girl agrees and says that she will think about it. Tyr asks how long she's been asleep and then says 7 years if he's not mistaken. She replies that she has and doesn't understand why he even asks. The young master does not care if she remembers anything about her previous life before she fell into a coma. The girl replies that at first she didn't even understand where she was, and only after a while did she get used to the surroundings. Tyr asks if she feels like she's in possession of someone else's memories. She replies that she doesn't even know and thought about him asking these questions and decided to play the polling game again. The Emperor asks her if she has ever considered that she is not really Alicia Ashtad. The lady replies that she has never thought so. Tyr asks why he still sees her as Lali then. And then he came closer to the girl and touched her face. At that time, she wondered why he was looking at her like that, and it seemed to her as if he really missed her. Alicia reminds him that he had told her before what kind of Lali she was, and asks if she looks so much like her. At this time, the young gentleman remembered the words of the advisor that perhaps she had not yet realized anything, and therefore he should not burden her with this nonsense and be tactful with her. The princess asks him if he is looking for this girl. He remembers the promise he made when he was little, that he would definitely find Lali, even if it took his whole life, and then he answers that he is looking for her. The girl asks why he thought that it was not only because she treated him well, but without her there would be no him, and then he thinks that he will stumble again and again until he can finally say, "Thank you," looking into her eyes. At this time, the Emperor thought that as soon as her memories returned, he would thank her for everything, and then he would confess his feelings, because he understood that he had not had the courage before. Tyr gathers all his indecision into a fist and says that he will finish her. Hearing this, the main character asks in surprise if he will finish, and at that moment she thought that he will finish with Lali. The Emperor looks at the lady and asks what is wrong with her as she has turned very pale. He then says that if something is bothering her, he can call a doctor. She replies that everything is fine as she is just a little tired, and asks if he does not mind if she can rest. Tyr agrees with the princess and tells her to rest. And when she was alone in the room, she remembered the words that he would finish her, and she thought that he was going to get rid of her. The princess thought that she was stupid because she thought that he missed her, and she understands that even if he hates her and thinks that it really is that bad, the main character is sure that this is all because of the distortion of the plot, where Lolly should not have opened his heart. However, she understands that she still had no choice, and she also wondered if the drag in his eyes was feigned. The girl thought that she could not understand the emperor. In the evening, when the princess went to bed, she dreamed of Tyr, who was holding a cucumber in his hand and offering her something to eat, but she refused. The emperor asks her why she does not eat cucumbers and why she avoids him. The girl answers that she did not avoid him, and he asks if she is Lolly and tells her to answer quickly. The main character woke up from this fear and thought that even in her sleep he had clung to her. And she understands that if the emperor continues to pressure her, she cannot reveal herself under any circumstances. Sitting on the bed, the girl thought that he was already coming to her in her dreams with his cucumber, and she could even smell it. The head maid came into the princess's room and said that she woke up a bit early today. Alicia asks the Countess what brought her to her, and she answers that she heard that her ward did something terrible, and therefore asks for forgiveness for having such a negative influence on her. Hearing this, the main character smiled and thought that this woman was very thick-skinned, and it was clear as day that she was pulling her strings. The Countess says that until they find a suitable candidate, she will personally serve her and asks if the lady does not mind. The princess replies that she probably has many responsibilities already and therefore can introduce her first servant to her. The head maid asks if she is talking about Mary Diana. The lady replies that she is, and then explains that she has become accustomed to her. The Countess agrees with her. Alicia says that she heard that Cyril was her niece, and she must have been very puzzled by what was happening. And then she says that His Majesty was very angry about this incident and hopes that it will not affect the reputation of their family. The Countess replies that she is her distant relative, and it does not matter whose family she belongs to because the law is the same for everyone. The princess says that as I expected, she is very selfless in palace affairs. She replies that of course, and at that time the lady thought that she was hiding the fact that it had hurt her. The Countess understands that every day she is on edge and she wonders if her beloved niece, who spends all this time behind bars, will give her away. And so she believes that for the time being her hands are tied. Suddenly, a man's voice is heard asking if he can come in. Hearing this, the main character thought that Tyr had come. The Countess says that he has come to His Majesty and asks if the door is open for him. The princess replies that of course, and at that moment she began to wonder if the dream was really all about something. The young gentleman asks how she slept today. The girl thought that he showed up early in the morning and she doesn't understand what's going on in this room. The main character smiles and then thanks him and says that thanks to his care she feels great. Tyr asks if she has eaten yet and then suggests going together to have breakfast. Hearing this, the main character thought that they were already having dinner together, and now she also had to look at his cucumber in the morning. And she wondered if he was just trying to seem caring. And again, that cucumber dream came to mind. 30 minutes later, the emperor asks if this is her first time in the greenhouse. Alicia replies that it is, and she thinks that she couldn't come up with an excuse, and that's why she had to come. The girl thinks that she will pretend to be full and leave here. Tyr explains that they will eat there. The princess saw that the sunlight was delicately breaking through the windows, and the table was surrounded by delicate garden flowers, and she did not understand what kind of luxurious breakfast was waiting for her. The emperor invites the princess to sit down. At this time, she thought that he was a gentleman and therefore would not bring her. Suddenly the girl retreated and almost fell, but Tyr caught her in time. He says that she can't be left for a minute. Alicia pushes the emperor away and then apologizes, explaining that she tripped and lost her balance. The young gentleman asks in surprise why she pushed him away like that. The lady asks how she pushed him away, and he says that it was rude. At this time, the main character does not understand what she is thinking about and why she did this, and for a moment, she thought he was cute. Alicia muses that she needs to come to her senses since he tried to kill her. Tyr offers the princess something to eat, since he thinks she might be hungry. The girl thanked him, and when she looked at the table, she did not understand why there was so much food, and she thought he was waiting for her to start eating. When the princess was eating, the young gentleman asked her if she liked her breakfast. She answered that it was very tasty. The guy said that he was glad to hear it. At this time, Alicia thought that his sweet smile was the same as when he was a child, and after that she did not understand what she was talking about and thought that she should not relax. All this time, Countess Ante was watching him from afar, thinking about how this princess dared to sow chaos in her soul, and she assumes that perhaps Cirilla was caught as a result of carefully coordinated actions of that girl and her lackeys. The Countess understands that soon her niece's mouth will be shut, however she does not like to feel the precipice under her feet, and so she understands that there is only one way to make her keep quiet. At this time, the main character does not understand how much longer the gentleman is going to look at her so intently, because that is why she can't swallow a bite now. The emperor asks the princess if she liked the salad better than the meat. She replies that she doesn't want to overload her stomach in the morning. He asks if she likes sweets, and the girl replies that she likes all kinds of desserts. At this time, the girl thought that she was sitting as if under interrogation. Tyr asks why she eats so little and says that he will notice that she always eats a little. Hearing this, the lady thought that he was simply looking at her so intently. The young gentleman suggests that perhaps she does have health problems. She replies that during the medical examination she was told that with her health she will live another 100 years, and at that moment she thought that he was somehow suspiciously caring, and she wonders what he has planned this time. Alicia, because of the remaining feelings, she subconsciously continues to believe him, and at this time she understands that he is planning something. Tyr says that it is clear to him, and he thinks that the palace physician should be gotten rid of. Since he could not recognize the problem, he does not belong here. His voice suddenly became rough, and his gaze became serious. Of Fodia, after all, and that he is no longer the Tyr she knew, and he is a tyrant, and she is his prisoner. However, she still continues to blindly hope that one day she will see his childish, naive look again. The young gentleman asks if she has finished eating. The girl replies that she has lost her appetite. He says that she has turned pale and thinks that she needs immediate first aid. And the princess objects and says that it is not necessary, and then she asked for forgiveness and said that she is leaving. The emperor looked after the girl and thought about where he could have made a mistake again. He only wanted to show interest in her and show his sincere intentions, and he thinks that she is at arm's length where he can easily reach her. The young gentleman reflects on the fact that as soon as he takes a step, she moves away from him by 2, and he thinks that he is holding sand in his hands, which inexorably falls between his fingers. The maid informs the head cook that His Majesty and Her Highness's meal is over and offers her to take a look since their food has not even been touched, and then informs her that His Highness declined due to poor health. Hearing this, the chef thought that he had suddenly called her to his office and asked her not to add cucumber to the salad, and then ordered her to fill in all her gastronomic preferences. The lady cook thinks that he is probably trying to keep this frisky bird in his cage, and she also remembers that the princess eats everything except cucumbers, and she does not like cucumbers as... The man who worked in the kitchen says that of course they left when the food on the table didn't even look like food. And then he asks who is spreading rumors that His Majesty likes her slop, and he calls the head cook an orphan from the lowest class. The man asks if she has anything to say. Hearing this, Mary apologizes for interrupting, and then says that she has come on behalf of Her Highness Princess Alicia, and she has something she wants to tell her. Hearing this, the sous chef became interested in what she wanted to tell her. At this time, the main character in her room is thinking that maybe she went a little overboard, and she is worried about his expression, which she managed to see at the end. The princess understands that she cannot simply accept this care without knowing where it comes from, and she has not forgotten that he and Lali have a very complicated relationship. Alicia dreams that at least in such moments, someone would take pity on her and take her side. At this moment, Mary enters the room. The princess is delighted to see her, and then asks if the head maid had said anything to her. She replies that she looked very sullen, but said nothing. The lady finds it strange that she didn't even try to dissuade her. She turns to the maid and says that she is glad that she was restored. Mary thanks Her Highness for forgiving her and says that she is not worthy of it, and then promises that in future she will do everything that she asks of her. The princess assures that everything is fine and she is not guilty of anything, and therefore we can rely on her. A little later, the main character learned that Mary came from a long-dead aristocratic family. Her parents died from a common illness, and she lost both the estate and the lands at once, and so she understands that if she were kicked out of the palace, she would have nowhere to go. Mary asks the lady if she has a task for her. At this time, the main character thought that now only Mary is on her side, and this of course is good, but she thinks that if there was a person of higher status on her side, it would be much cooler. The maid looks at her mistress and asks in surprise what happened. She replies that she has something for her and asks if she can go to the kitchen right now. When Mary came into the kitchen, she said that she wanted to give something to the sous chef from the princess. Hearing this, the man smiled and assumed that maybe she had a stomach ache, and therefore he believed that maybe she would finally be punished properly. The maid heard this and thought that he was humiliating her just because she was a girl and considered him disgusting, and then she looked at the cook and wanted her to shut his mouth and answer. Mary smiles and says that Her Highness thanked the sous chef for the delicious food and apologized very much for not finishing it, since she was not feeling well. That is why she sat down to eat a little bit of everything. Lady heard this and didn't understand why she suddenly decided to tell her about it. But in any case, she was grateful to her, and now at least the geezer would finally shut his mouth. The sous chef tells the man that she is sorry that the princess did not get any animals from her cooking, and she thinks that he probably really hoped for this and offers him to try to treat her with his cooking. Hearing this, the head cook says that she is a beast and has really gotten on his nerves. The assistant cook asks why he always fights with her if she always finds something to put him down with. The man screams and tells him to shut up, then asks whose side he is on. He says that even when all the nobility was against her appointment to this post, the emperor did not bat an eyelid. At this point, the sous chef thought about the princess sending a maid to apologize to some cook, and then she remembers that it was noticeable that she was uncomfortable at the table that evening. After all, she is an aristocrat from a foreign country, but here she is just an inconspicuous prisoner, and she is not the most empathetic person, but she feels a little sorry for her. Sous chef thought that this lady is the princess of the kingdom Ashtat, and the next time we meet we should be more friendly with her. The maid turns to Her Highness and says that she has already gone to the sous chef. The lady says that she is a clever girl and asks if she has conveyed her words to her. She replies that she has, but the atmosphere was not very good. Mary reports that she heard that she is of a lower class and also a girl in such a position, and for the boss, she is just an eyesore. Alicia says she didn't know about it. The maid claims she didn't give up her position at all. She also told the boss that if he didn't like something, he should do it himself. And so she had the feeling that she was the one making fun of him, not him. The main character remembered that Maud had a steely character before, and today she just wanted to leave a good impression of herself and did not think that she was treated like that in the kitchen. The maid says that on the way, she met the emperor's advisor, Waken, who told her that His Majesty was very busy today and would not be able to dine with the princess. The princess says that this is great news for her, and she will go to the library and have a wonderful time there. Alicia reflects on the fact that even if she allowed herself too much, they have been having dinner together for a long time. She wondered if he was really offended. Afek says he doesn't understand what's going on at all and asks the Countess why her niece was involved in a criminal case. The woman replies that there is no justification for this act. He, screaming, asks if she has any idea what her act is fraught with, and then he asserts that the emperor is not an idiot, and he will understand everything perfectly well. Ante asks His Highness to give her another chance, and then claims that she will sort this matter out. The gentleman asks if she will figure it out and if she has a plan. The lady replies that she bribed the prison guard, and then she says that she will shut her mouth forever and that he need not worry. Duke Juvet claims that even a small mistake will be unforgivable. The Countess says that she understands His Grace and puts her life on the line. The next day, the maid enthusiastically invites the mistress to look at her dress and says that it is very beautiful. The mistress says that it is really beautiful. Mary reports that, as expected from Madame Valentina, the best fashion designer in the empire, Valentina says that because of Her Majesty's beauty, the splendor of her dress may go completely unnoticed. Madame Valentina, a fashion designer famous throughout the empire, offers Her Highness to choose an accessory for her dress. The main character remembered that Mary had said that her works were extremely popular, and in the debut season you couldn't push through to make an order, but by order of His Majesty, she freed up her schedule and nevertheless sewed dresses for her. The princess thought about how Tyr had been playing hide-and-seek with her for a week, and he even told her about his debut through an advisor, and when she looked at her wardrobe, she didn't understand why there were only dresses. Valentina asks the princess how she is, and then says that His Majesty ordered not only to sew dresses for the debut, but also to cut something for everyday routine. Alicia replies that these dresses are beautiful, and she is probably very busy but still made time for her. The main character thought that not only was she embarrassed to become a debutante of a foreign country, but rumors would also start spreading that she had taken the best fashion designer away from the young girls. She says that fortunately she managed to free herself this year. The debutante season was delayed quite a bit. The princess recalls that Mary said that they wanted to cancel it altogether due to military actions on the territory of the Kingdom of Tahel. The designer says that she thinks that for His Majesty, she is like a dandelion from God. And a couple of days ago, when she left the palace after the measures were lifted, told His Majesty that she would like to take responsibility for the princess's dress, and she explains that as soon as she saw her, she realized that she was her muse. Valentina swears to the emperor on her own name that at the debutante's ball, all eyes will be on her. His Majesty says that she has a keen eye, and so he agrees to give her his permission. The fashion designer says that His Majesty also said and ordered not to skimp on fabric. Hearing this, the princess was surprised, and the woman said that the rumors about their love games were not a lie. Alicia says there was a misunderstanding, and there is no love between them. Suddenly, Valentina interrupts her and suggests not to worry, because she is a grave and swears by her dress because she cannot swear by a big one. Alicia explains that there really are no love games between them. The designer asks the lady if she can start trying it on. At this point, the main character thinks that she is not even listening to her. When the girl put on the dresses, the maid turns to Her Highness and says that she is beautiful. After a few examples, the princess lays down on the bed and asks for help. Mary asks if she is tired. The princess explains that ladies' affairs are much more complicated than she imagined. The maid asks what will be done with dinner, and then says that if she is tired, she will bring it to the room. At this time, the main character thought that because she had been stewing here in these dresses all day, she really wanted to breathe some fresh air, and then she asked if maybe she should eat in the living room today. Mary says she'll clean up quickly and take her to dinner. A week has passed since that awkward breakfast, and the main character hasn't met Tyr once during this time. In his defense, he said that he was very busy, and she thought that he probably took her for a fool. The princess reflects on the fact that she is not offended at all, but simply surprised, and does not understand how he can behave like this. The captain says he is interested in what His Majesty has been so busy with lately, and literally a week ago he could only be found in her room. The princess says that he is the emperor and has state affairs. Oscar says that he heard that the emperor began working at night because of insomnia, and since he became emperor, he has not been able to breathe a sigh of relief for a single day, and now he has stopped following the regime. Hearing this, the princess became interested in what was bothering him. The captain turns to the princess and says that her ankle is probably still hurting, and therefore offers to let him help her. The lady replies that it is not necessary and that she is already fine. Oscar asks if he can let her slip and fall, and then asks her not to refuse him. Hearing their conversation, Wacken thought that they would cry for him after the Oscar in 49 days. The princess objects and says that it is not worth it, and she will go down the stairs herself. At this time, the emperor comes up to her and asks if her ankle still hurts, and then asks if he wants to take her there. Having seen the emperor, the main character does not understand why she is so happy to see him, and so she thinks that maybe she missed him for a week, but she does not understand why her heart is beating so much. Tyr asks if she wants to and says that she doesn't need help from him. Hearing this, the main character objects and says that her leg really does still hurt, and then asks if he could hold it. The princess explains that she actually has difficulty going down the stairs and would like him to help her. His Majesty agrees and offers his hand to the lady. Seeing this, the servants thought that he could not take his eyes off the princess, and it seemed to them that they were observing a rare phenomenon. Tyr notices their curious look and asks if they are done with their business. Then he says he can fix that. He says he will see the princess off and tells the others to return to their duties. Oscar turns to His Majesty and says that he must accompany the princess after the meal. Hearing this, Wacken turns to him and says that he needs to talk to him about something concerning the knight's company. Oscar suggests that he wait as he wants to see these doves. The advisor whispers in his ear that if he doesn't want people to cry over his name with flowers, then he'd better suggest that he follow him. Mary says that she forgot something, so she quickly runs into the room. The main character saw that everyone was leaving and she didn't understand why. Alicia Idem ponders with the Emperor why she said such a thing, because she understands that she could have simply refused, but she remembers that he had such a sad expression on his face just like Rude did then. Alicia thought that she was worried about his insomnia, and if you look closely you can see dark circles under his eyes. Tyr asks the lady if she liked the dresses she had made. She replies that Madame Valentina did her best and that it was the first time she had seen such beauty. Then she thanked His Majesty. The girl saw that he was smiling sweetly again. The Emperor said that if she wanted anything, she should not be shy and tell him about it. At this time, the main character does not understand why her heart does not calm down, and she wondered if she was really so worried next to him. Alicia turns to His Majesty and thanks him for seeing her off. The gentleman asks if he can be her partner at the upcoming debut ball. Hearing this, the girl does not understand why he asks her permission. Suddenly, Oscar enters the room and screaming addresses His Majesty and asks for forgiveness, and then explains that he has an urgent report to make to him. The Emperor asks if it is necessary now. The captain whispers in Tycho's ear that they have just received a message from the dungeon. Tyr turns to the lady and says that it is time for him to go and then wishes her a good meal. The girl thanks him and thinks that this is the first time he has asked her permission, and she does not understand what has come over him. The aunt decided to visit Cirilla, and when the girl saw her, she was very happy. Ante tells the girl that she doesn't look very well and then asks what questions she was asked. Cirilla replies that they kept asking where she got the juice from. Then she says that His Majesty has already found out that it is Foci. The Countess asks how much she has told. She replies that she has told nothing about her or him. Ante says he is proud of her. Cirilla asks to get her out of here because she does not want to die. The aunt says that she is poor and then informs that he will soon use his powers, and she will not have long to endure, and it is reported that she brought her something to eat because she thinks that she should not be with an empty stomach. The Countess asks if she is very hungry and gives her bread. The girl takes the bread and thanks her aunt. But when Cirilla bit a piece of the poison, quickly took effect, and before she could say anything, she fell into eternal sleep. Ante apologizes to the girl and then explains that they could not have acted differently since he believes that she was just a victim of circumstances. Leaving prison. Aunt thought about the fact that she still had to deal with the guard she bribed, and she thinks that it is difficult for her to clean up her tracks. The Emperor says she didn't even blink when her niece coughed up blood, and he wonders if she has a heart, and then he says he'll check it out. Seeing the Emperor, the Countess became frightened and turned to His Highness. At this time, Wacken interrupts her and tells her not to even try to brush him off since he believes it is useless. Tyr says she bribed the prison guard, not even suspecting it was a trap. He says she's surprised because the prisoner's aunt was being followed, and he knows she didn't plan it. She did it alone. The Emperor asks who is standing behind her, and now he asserts that it is in her interests to obey them. At this time, the main character walking with the animal recalled the words of the Emperor. She wondered if he had really fallen in love with Alicia. The girl thinks that maybe he hasn't fallen in love, but he has definitely gotten attached, and maybe not just attached. Since her covenant to have breakfast together is interested in her and tries to seem caring, the main character ponders who would have thought that all these were signs of attention. The girl remembers that he asked her if she knew who Lali was, and she thinks it's obvious because he has suspicions, but he's not sure. Alicia thought that maybe he was just testing her, and if Tyr really did like her, it was very dangerous. She knew that nothing had changed and she couldn't get caught. The princess doesn't understand what to do now. She wonders what if he thinks that she betrayed him and something irreparable might happen, and that's why she's afraid, and she doesn't understand how to debut in such stress. Eden approaches Alicia Riat. I reminds her that they have already met in the palace library. The princess apologizes and says that she did not know then that he was a marquis. He explains that his elder brother received the title and he is second after him. Hearing this, the main character remembered that Ariada has 2 elder brothers. The girl reflects on the fact that his name didn't seem familiar to her at all, and it seems that in the original stories, he was an inconspicuous character. Eden apologizes and asks if he can keep her company. The girl agrees, but at this time Rudd began to bark and she suggests that he calm down. The princess explains that Rudd is actually very kind and tells the man not to be afraid of him. The marquis says he heard a terrible incident happened during the hunt. The princess asks if the rumors have spread yet. She says that as far as she can see, she is fine and the perpetrator has been caught and is currently being investigated. Eden asks how a man could do such a thing, and then says that even death would not be enough for this, and he also wonders where His Majesty disappeared to when the princess almost caught an arrow with her body. The Marquis does not understand how he allowed the girl to participate in such a dangerous competition, and they say that he does not understand it at all. And then he asks the girl if there is something written on his face. Alicia, that it's not that, and then explains that she just didn't expect him to be so open. She says that when they first met, he seemed shy to her. The gentleman apologizes and says that he cannot contain his emotions when he begins to put together the facts of this incident. The princess thanks him for worrying about her and asks why he came to the palace. The marquis replies that he wanted to meet her, and he says that after their first meeting he came to the library several more times, but he did not find her at the books. Alicia asks if he needs anything from her. He asks if she will be attending the upcoming ball. The lady replies that she will. Eden says that if she hasn't chosen a partner yet, can he hope to be one for her? At this time, the emperor turns to Oscar and he asks what happened. Tyr asks why he is alone and where Princess. The captain replies that she said she wanted to take a walk and he is waiting for her, and since she is rude, there is nothing to be afraid of. Oscar tells the emperor that he sees the princess has begun to open up to him, and then he congratulates him and says that he should let her ride him more often. Hearing this, Tyr suggests getting down to business and calls him a blockhead, and he says that His Majesty does not value his advice. At this time, the emperor thought that Oscar had completely gotten out of hand, and he would have to teach him a lesson. Tyr saw the princess and wondered who was next to her. As he got closer, he saw that it was the second son of the family who suddenly had his eye on the princess. In the original story, Alicia never woke up, so any twist here is unpredictable. Eden says that he thinks that her answer is no. Hearing this, the main character thinks that this could be her chance, because at the debutante ball, she will be able to meet the main character. Alicia understands that she is in the middle of a hunting tournament. For some reason she got caught, but she knows that Tyr is destined by the stars to meet Ariada, and therefore she believes that it is imperative that they meet. The main character believes that then Tyr will finally get on the right path and lose interest in her. The girl doesn't understand why her chest feels so heavy. Eden turns to the princess, and she explains that she was thinking for a while. At this time, Rudd saw the emperor and ran to him. The marquis tells the emperor that it is an honor for him to meet him. Tyr says he hasn't seen him here before. Eden asks to introduce himself. Then he says he is the son of Marquis Riad Eden. His Majesty asks if he knows the princess. Hearing this, the lady explains that they met in the library shortly before the hunting tournament. Eden says that although he has been in the capital lately, he sometimes visits the palace with his brother. Hearing this, the emperor thought that she had been communicating with a stranger behind his back, and with a man at that. The princess asks if he was out for a walk. His Majesty replies that he was not, as he was looking for her in order to hear the answer to that question. The girl doesn't understand why now. Tyr says that she has the right to refuse, and he just wanted to hear her answer. And at that moment he thought that he would still listen to the advice of the sly half-elf. Alicia on what such a sad face to build against the right because she can give up too quickly. The princess turns to the master and Eden and apologizes. Then she says that she would be happy to accept his offer but has already chosen a partner. The The Marquis tells her not to worry because everything is fine, and then he says that he is leaving. Tyr asks the lady if she wants to explain herself, and they wonder if this bastard also wanted to become her partner. The lady says, yeah, and at that moment she thought about why the bastard right away. The Emperor reports that he sees her with him has become close since she even calls him by name. The girl apologizes and then explains that she didn't know how to address him, and at that moment she thought that he was jealous. Tyr says that in general they have already agreed. Alicia says that she will rely on him. His Majesty claims that he will prepare thoroughly. The main character understands that she can't fall in love with him, and so she thinks that she should just go with the flow. The princess muses that there is some atmosphere, and she needs to change the subject. She asks what happened to Cirilla Walt, and he wonders if the investigation is over yet. Focia juice was found on the arrowhead. Its effects have been proven on animals. It works as a stimulant, increasing all physical characteristics. Alicia asks if the shot that hit the horse was not an accident and if it was planned in advance. She wonders if she told where she got it from. Tyr replies that they found out everything but not from her. The Emperor says that he asked the Countess who was standing behind her. Wacken said that they had collected all the evidence that it was they who gave the order to harm the princess, and then he claims that she also killed her niece. The Emperor says that for this alone he can destroy her entire family, but he will treat her more humanely if she answers his questions. Tyr says that she will comply with the interrogation procedure and tell him everything, and in exchange he will spare her life, depriving her of the noble title, and therefore he believes that this is very humane. The Countess says that 10 years have passed since the death of her husband, and all this time for the sake of protecting the family, and she faithfully served Duke Jouvert, but since she has no choice now, and she does not want her family to perish in the fire, Chloe Ante thanks His Majesty for his mercy and says that she will carry out any order. The Emperor turns to her and asks her to listen to him carefully, and then he tells her that today she will leave this place as if nothing had happened, but she must write a letter to her puppeteer about how everything worked out. Hearing this, the main character does not understand how this is possible, and could it really be that Mrs. Ante killed Cirilla? Tyr says that Duke Jouvert has probably already received the message. The girl asks what he is going to do next. The young gentleman replies that he is not only cunning but also very experienced. The Emperor says they must have solid evidence that he cannot brush aside. The lady asks if he wants to use Chloe as his pawn. He says he will take care of everything and tells her not to worry. Then he says she has already helped him a lot. Hearing this, the princess smiled and said that it happened by accident. At this time, Tyr remembered that when he was little, a beast attacked him, but suddenly Lolly appeared with fire in her hands and saved him, and also drove the beast away. The maid turns to His Highness and asks if he is all right. The little gentleman replies that he has scraped his knee a little. She says that it is a disaster and will treat the wound right away. Tyr thinks that she saved him again, and even if her memory never returns, he will definitely protect her. Ariada asks Mr. Eichel if he has returned. Hearing this, he suggests that she call him simply brother. She apologizes and explains that she addressed him that way by accident. He suggests that she be more careful in public since only she knows his true face. The lady says that she has seen him come to the palace quite often lately. The Marquis replies that he is checking the situation here. Ariada asks if he is really interested in Princess Alicia. Then he says that on the day they first came to the palace together, she saw him flirting with some girl. The lady says that she is at a hunting tournament. She asked people and they told her who she was, and then she asks if he really came to the palace to meet her. The young lady tells him not to keep silent, and again asks if he really visited the palace to meet her. The Marquise touches the girl's hair and claims that she is mistaken, and explains that he and she were just talking. Ariada says that she is indeed very beautiful and has attracted all eyes at the hunting tournament. He turns to her and says that only she knows his secret and asks if the lady understands what it means. Ekel says that the day will come when he will stand at the head of this empire, and then Anna will be next to him, and therefore suggests to Ariada not to worry about anything. Hearing this, she was very happy. When the Marquis was left alone, he wondered where she got all this naive optimism from, and he doesn't understand whether everyone really cares only about his shell, and he's already pretty tired of this game, and that's why he thinks he has to find her soul. Ekel, holding an unknown object in his hand, says that everything is ready, and all that remains for him to do is give it to her. He thinks that he is a pathetic half-elf, and he does not even understand where he is reaching for his hands, and therefore he will not interrupt his sweet sleep now, but he understands that he will definitely wake up soon. A month later at the debut ball, the butler announced the arrival of the princess and the emperor. At this time, the main character thought that she was ready for this, but she does not understand why everyone is looking only at them, since she is already uneasy, and now she is walking hand in hand with the emperor, and she understands that there will be no end to rumors later. Alicia looked at Tyr and thought that he was happy. She asks if this dress suits her. The young master replies that she is beautiful and that one cannot take one's eyes off her. Hearing this, the main character does not understand where he picked up such words, because just yesterday he was embarrassed to take her hand, and on the way he picked it up, and she wonders why time flies so much. Afek Juver greets His Majesty and says that they have not seen each other for a long time, and then asks if everything is well with him. When the main character saw him, she thought that this was Duke Juven and she was seeing him for the first time. Then she looked at the girl who was next to him and thought that this was his daughter because they looked alike. The emperor says that they haven't seen each other for a long time, and he heard that he has settled down on his estate. The Duke explains that he has been busy with state affairs and has therefore visited the palace very rarely lately. Tyr says that he tried to woo him before and therefore is surprised that he suddenly fell silent. At this time, the main character thought that the emperor was speaking straight to the forehead. The Duke says he has a beautiful lady. The princess says she is glad to meet him and her name is Alicia Ashtad. Juven says that he has heard about her and says that she is a real beauty. And he sees that she has already made her debut and then asks if it is time for her to start looking for a groom. And if she wants, then he can find her a good passion since he understands that she is, after all, a hostage. The Duke says she should settle down and marry a commoner of their empire. Hearing this, the princess thought that he was a vile character and she didn't give a damn about his feigned politeness. After all, he looked at her as if she were some kind of thing and was taking the place of his dear daughter. Alicia reflects that she will not allow herself to be insulted and says that the rumors are not lying because he is a very kind man, the Duke who worries not only about the marriage of His Majesty's, but also about her. The princess says that she thinks he is bogged down in state affairs and then asks if he has time to deal with her engagement. Hearing this, the Duke thought that she was mocking him. Tyr turns to him and says, since that's the case, would he like to become a matchmaker? Since he is sure that many of the unmarried and unmarried aristocrats at this ball will be happy. Juven explains that he was only trying to be polite to her. The emperor says that Princess Alicia is a rightful guest at this ball and that she was invited to Fodia to ratify the act of concluding peace with another kingdom. Tyr informs that if he calls her a hostage again, he will consider it an insult to the entire empire. Hearing this, the aristocrats thought that His Majesty valued the princess very much, and they thought that the Duke now clearly had no chance of marrying his daughter to the emperor, and Her Majesty did not even pay attention to her. Juven thought that the princess had publicly humiliated his family, one of the most influential aristocrats of the empire, and therefore she would answer for her words. Alicia asks His Highness if it is okay that he has shown such open hostility towards him. He asks if she is talking about the Duke. The lady asks if he is sure he will not suspect anything. He replies that it is rather the opposite since he officially called her a guest. Tyr says that now he will not be able to openly try to harm her. And besides, his authority as an aristocrat has hit rock bottom. Even such pompous people cannot stand criticism, and soon he will give in. The main character understands why he announced it to everyone. She wonders if he really became her partner just like that. Tyr turns to the princess and asks if he can ask her to dance. She agrees, and they begin to dance. The aristocrats looking at them say that they are a wonderful couple and are very suitable for each other, and they think that probably it was she who melted the heart of their emperor. When Alicia went outside, the emperor followed her and asked if everything was okay. She replied that she just wanted to get some fresh air and suggested not to worry about her. Tyr says that since everything is fine, then he will leave for a while. Standing on the balcony, the main character thought that she was tired, but she still found a free minute, and she understands that if she hadn't left, the aristocrats would have already finished her off with their looks. The girl reflects on the fact that he actually used her, but she understands that it was for the good. And she thinks that everything is fine, and this is just part of the plan. The princess remembers that during the dance she thought for a second that Tyr really was in love with her, but not in the same way as with Alicia, and she understands that their personalities need to be clearly distinguished. Eden approaches her and says that he has finally found her. Alicia says she saw him today with his sister. He explains that this is why he couldn't greet her. At this time, the main character thought that if Eden is here, it means that Tyr could have crossed paths with Ariata, and she hopes that love will finally blossom between them. Eden reports that His Majesty has declared her an honored guest at this ball, and she is very important to him. The lady says that she is indeed a valuable hostage. Hearing this, the young gentleman says that it does not seem at all that he is holding her hostage. At this time, the main character thought that his innocent smile, all this care, sincere concern, it all seemed fake to her. And if she is right, then this is not good at all, because she is taking someone else's place. Eden turns to the princess and apologizes for annoying her once again. The lady says that he should forgive her for her suddenness, and then asks if he has ever had such a feeling in his soul, as if he does not understand himself. Alicia says it probably sounds weird, but she's started to forget who she really is. The main character remembers that first she fell off a bridge and then became a maid named Lali, and now she was suddenly reborn as a princess. And finding herself in Fodia, she did not have time to think about herself. The lady is interested in the question of why she died and why she was reborn again, and she is not even sure of her past, and she does not understand whether she has the right to take away someone's future. The princess ponders that if Tyr really loved Alicia, then she would suddenly die again, and this would finally break his heart. Alicia apologizes for her liberty. Eden says that he imagines it, but he understands her. The lady says that sometimes she feels very cramped in her current form. The Marquis says that a shell is always just a shell, and he is sure that one day someone will be able to see what she hides behind it, and so he suggests that perhaps this someone is already very close. Ariata turns to her brother and asks where he disappeared to, and then says if only he knew how long she had been looking for him. The princess looked at the lady and did not understand what was wrong with her gaze. Eden turns to the princess and apologizes, then reveals that this is Ariata, his younger sister. Alicia says she's glad to meet the lady, and that's when she thought about how this girl was acting like she stole her boyfriend. The lady with pink hair says that as soon as she turned away, he disappeared. Hearing this, the main character thought that she didn't remember that in the original, Ariata idolized her brother so much. Ariata tells her brother that she has a stomachache and is feeling dizzy and offers to take her home. He explains that they are at a debutant ball and so it is too early to leave. However, the girl assures that she is really having a hard time. The princess offers to take Mr. Eden home and then tells him that she will stay here, and then thanks him for taking her words seriously. Ariata asks Adana why he was with her again, and she wonders if they had this conversation by accident again. The guy replies that this time it wasn't. Then he explains that in order to undermine the emperor's status, he needs information. Aiden claims that the princess is an ideal candidate from all sides, and she will serve as an informant for him. Riat assures the girl that he has nothing with her, and therefore suggests not to worry about it. Ariata says that His Majesty values her very much, and the other aristocrats also unanimously say that they have a special relationship. Hearing this, the gentleman says that it is all false, and then explains that he wanted to say that for His Majesty, she is just a hostage who has no right to choose. Eden thought that this was unacceptable, since he had spent so much effort to find her, and he began to forget who she really was. But he hopes that very soon she will understand everything and remember who she is. The young master thought that he would not allow anyone to take her away from him again. At this time, the main character thought that one day someone would see what was hiding behind his shells and think that he would just console her. He tried, that's all. The girl thinks that maybe such a person will be found, but she doesn't understand what he can see there if even she can't put things in order in her head. The emperor turns to the princess and she apologizes and explains that she was just lost in thought. He asks what is wrong and if she is feeling well. Alicia assures him that she is fine, and then asks if he wants to run a cross-country race. Suddenly, the princess twisted her foot, and she thought that today without cross-country because she would like to get used to dancing first, and especially in new shoes. At this time, Tyr picks up the princess in his arms and suggests that she be patient. At this time, the main character thought about how he had picked her up right at the ball in front of everyone, and she wanted to sink into the ground from this shame. He thought that this was too much, and then she remembered that those words were enough for the Duke. Alicia turns to His Majesty and assures him that she is indeed fine. He takes off her shoes and sees that they have rubbed her. The girl explains that she simply dances very poorly and then assures that tomorrow it will all be over. Tyr asks to let him take care of her. Hearing this, the main character does not understand why he has become such a good boy and then asks why he is so kind to her. The Emperor asks in surprise if this is strange. She says that he has changed his attitude towards her very abruptly. The young gentleman says that looking at her leg, he doesn't find it strange, and he claims that there is no particular reason for it, and because he thinks that she shouldn't worry. Hearing this, the main character thought that if Tyr really felt something for Alicia, then she didn't understand whether she should keep silent. The young gentleman looked at the girl and asked if she wanted to say something. At this time, the princess thought that she needed to tell him the truth before it was too late. Alicia apologizes and asks if she can leave the ball. She explains that it is very difficult for her to walk. The girl thought that now was not the time, and Tyr had not been able to awaken his power for a long time. And so he was an outcast in the imperial circles, and after she disappeared, it probably only became more difficult for him. The main character reflects on the fact that his life is finally starting to improve, and she will erase this sincere smile from his face with her worthless truth. And that's why she doesn't want to hurt him again. The Emperor asks if she can handle it alone. The lady replies that she has changed her shoes to more comfortable ones, and now she doesn't have to worry, and he thinks that he should stay in the hall. Alicia says that Oscar will be with her, so the Emperor does not have to worry. He agrees and suggests that she return to her place and rest. At this time, the main character thought that she needed to avoid his gaze while the flame of feelings had not yet flared up, and then she would be able to tell him who she was. When the princess came home, she moved and fell asleep for a minute while reading a book. The girl had a dream, and she doesn't understand where she is, but she feels that it's some familiar place. Suddenly, a lady with bright red hair addresses her. Alicia asks who she is. The lady replies that she doesn't even know. At this time, the main character looked at her beautiful hair and became curious about where it came from. Alicia looked at her feet, and she didn't understand why she was barefoot. An unknown lady explains that it is rather a secret corner of her subconscious, and at the same time her territory. The princess asks in surprise what all this means. The girl says that her name is Fodia, and she is Alicia, and Alicia is her hearing. This the princess does not understand what she is talking about. Fodia replies that she will understand everything soon when they see each other, and then she leaves. The princess screams after her and suggests that she wait. The lady with red hair asks her to take care of her beloved Reincarnation. Alicia is awakened by a maid who turns to her and says that the food is ready. The princess says that she suddenly felt sleepy, and the maid says that she seems to be very tired after the debutante ball. At this time, the main character thought that she had a strange dream, and she can't remember. Mary covers the princess with a blanket and says that in Fodia it gets cold in the evening, even in summer, and so she asks her to eat in her room. Suddenly, the main character screams that it is definitely Fodia, and at that moment she thought that the girl from her dream called herself Fodia, and then she remembers that she also told her something strange, and she does not understand why dreams are forgotten so quickly. Fodia is an immortal creature from legend who helped people and founded this empire. The princess remembers that in a history book she recently read, it was said that the country was named after her, and she does not understand how this Fodia suddenly appeared in her dream, and that is why she is somehow uneasy. Alicia wondered if her death was connected to her and thought that she needed to go to the library before lunch. The maid picks up a scarf from the floor and says, "It looks like a chef's." Alicia tells Mary to let her look at it. When she sees the initials on the scarf, she says they belong to Maud. The main character thought that it probably looked strange that she used the ball as an excuse to meet, and she would understand if she didn't come. The maid says that she has already arrived. Maud turns to the princess and says that she is glad to see her, and then asks if she called her. Alicia asks if she's distracting her too much, and then asks if she'd like to have some tea with her. At this time, the main character thought that her hand should not shake, and she does not understand why this lady is drilling a hole in her with her gaze. Maud asks the lady why she called her. The lady replies that she wanted to give it back to her and shows her the scarf. She explains that she accidentally found it in the hallway and wanted to give it to her personally. Seeing the scarf, Maud thought that she was looking for it, and then she thanks the lady for her care. The princess objects and tells her not to thank her. At this point, the maid thought that it was a good thing the boss hadn't found him, and then she asks how she knows her name. Alicia replies that she is simply a very good cook, and that is why she asked the maids her name. Hearing this, the sous chef thought that she did not see any evil intent in the prince's actions, but she thought that something was holding her back. Maud remembers that when she saw Lali, she asked who had bullied her again today, but she told her not to worry because she was already used to it. The girl with black hair thought that Lali was the most kind-hearted person she knew. For the sake of His Majesty, she endured pain and humiliation, the traces of which she had to hide under a mask of imperturbability. Maud doesn't understand why, looking at the princess, she suddenly remembers her. She became interested in what is happening to Lali now. At this time, the main character thought that she probably looked stupid, although she was trying to be natural, and she even forgot that she had not asked her name, because she was so happy about their meeting that she stopped thinking at all. Maud asks the lady and says that she thinks she doesn't like cucumbers. The princess replies that she does. She asks what other taste preferences she has. Alicia replies that she likes meat more than vegetables, and the taste should be rich, definitely rich. The girl with black hair asks what about desserts. She replies that perhaps more fruit than chocolate, and her favorite is apple pie. Maud says that she is so much like her friend, and then she says that she had a friend for whom she secretly cooked, and that was the time when they both worked as maids, so she had no right to be capricious. However, she believed that there was, and her favorite thing was apple pie. The sous chef says that memories seem to stick in your mind. Hearing this, the main character thought that she hadn't forgotten about her, and even about the apple pie. Alicia says that she also had a friend, and she always took care of her despite her whims, and next to her she involuntarily begins to remember her. Hearing this, the Maud thought that she was probably talking about her friend who stayed in Ashtat, and since she was in her place, she understands her perfectly. Maud turns to the princess and says that if she doesn't mind, she can keep her company sometimes, and then she says that communication with her is not always interesting. Hearing this, the lady says that she will only be glad of this, and the girl says that she can call her by name. At this time, the main character became interested in whether she would be able to tell her her secret if they gradually became closer, but she understands that even if she could, it doesn't matter because she finally met her. Duke Juven reflects on the fact that he did not think that this hostage would cause him so many problems. After all, if she marries the emperor, and then he slams his fist on the table and says that this is unacceptable. The Duke says he has spent a fortune to marry his daughter to His Majesty, and he doesn't understand what he can offer him except Sylvia. At this time, the butler enters his office, addresses His Excellency, and says that he has urgent news, and it concerns a maid named Lali, who took care of the emperor in his childhood. The butler says they found a girl who looks exactly like her. The princess, together with the people she considered close, went on a picnic. Maud says it's apple season, and she's baked an apple pie. The mistress says it looks delicious and then thanks her for the treat because she thinks they have another delicious dessert. Sous chef says she hopes she likes it. Alicia ate a piece and says it was delicious, and it was the first time she tasted such a delicious apple pie. Hearing this, Maud says she is glad. Mary asks if she can try it too. The princess tells her to eat and not be shy. Then she tells her that when she has someone to share delicious food with, it tastes even better. And when the main character was eating, one piece fell, but she picked it up and sat down. Seeing this, the maid is surprised and asks why she did this. The lady explains that this is the 3-second rule, and if food falls on the floor, she has 3 seconds to eat it. Seeing this, Maud remembers that when she brought the treat, Lali felt awkward. She says that she does not want to bother her every day since she cannot repay her with anything. Maud says that when she has someone to share delicious food with, it becomes even more delicious and suggests eating and not being shy. But when one cookie fell, Lolly quickly picked it up. The cook asks why she did that. She explains that if 3 seconds have not passed, then you can eat calmly. Sous chef thought that it was too much. The princess reminded her of Lolly. Although they were not similar in appearance, everything else about her seemed to scream that it was her. She wondered if it was a coincidence. Tyr was watching them from afar. He tells Rudd that he was quiet and did not disturb them. The emperor thought that she was laughing, making eyes at his sous chef, and it would be better if she behaved like that with him. However, he was glad that she was smiling after all to know that they were best friends, and perhaps this would help her regain her memory. Tyr doesn't understand how long he has to wait for her to open her heart, and he thought that the debutante ball helped them get closer, but he doesn't understand why she distanced herself from him again. The emperor does not understand how he can make her smile as sincerely. Wacken turns to his majesty and says that he has been looking for him everywhere. Then he says that Duke Juven wants to hold a meeting after dinner. Tyr says that he will buzz in his ear again and does not understand why he needed a meeting, and then asks if this is important since he suddenly started fussing. The advisor says he seems to have found a girl named Lolly. Sitting in the carriage, the gentleman asks her if she has filled in everything he said, and then he claims that any mistakes are unacceptable. The girl replies that she understands him and then asks if he has forgotten his promise. The Duke tells her not to worry about it and to think better of the fact that if she fails, she will be executed, and then he tells her that they have arrived at the imperial palace. Tyr turns to the Duke and asks him to get down to business, and then asks if it is true that he has found a girl named Lolly, and he wonders if he is going to deceive him. Juven turns to his number and asks if he could, and says that a month ago a lost girl was found in his duchy. By a lucky chance his maid found her, and when the girl came to, she said that her name was Lolly, and in the past she served the emperor of this country. The Duke explains that as she said she was once kidnapped and woke up in this city, the emperor says that something doesn't add up here since he simply erased 7 years from her life. Juven says that at first he himself did not believe her, but it turned out that she not only looked like her, but this girl knew about all the palace intrigues and was able to tell about the people she knew in great detail. The Duke says that he has no right to judge alone, and that is why he brought her here, and then he invites His Majesty to see for himself. The emperor invites the girl to come in. When the lady enters the room, she asks His Highness if he recognizes her. Tyr asks if she is Lolly. At this time, the main character sitting in the library understands what is written in this book because the descriptions are vague, and it is written only that she is an immortal creature, and it seemed to the main character that she was reading a fairy tale. Because who is this Fodia? The book itself does not know. The girl doesn't understand why she suddenly appeared in her dream, and her words still sound in her head, and so she thought that it was somehow connected with her personality, and she also wondered if she was imagining things. Walking along the corridor, the princess saw that the servants were discussing something, and Mary said that it was somehow noisy in the palace. The maid turns to Her Majesty and says that yesterday a guest arrived at the palace who used to serve His Majesty. At this time, the unknown girl asks the emperor if he will show her the garden. He replies that unfortunately he will only be able to show the garden next time, and then he says that she is addressing him incorrectly. Hearing this, the girl smiled and said that it was out of habit and that is why she was apologizing. When the princess saw this girl, she did not understand who she was. The lady turned to Alicia and asked if she was the princess of the kingdom of Ashtad that Duke Duver spoke of. And then she comes closer and says that she is glad to meet him and informs that her name is Lolly and that she once served His Highness. At this time, the main character does not understand why she looks so much like her. She wondered if they were cloned. The emperor explains that it is time for him to go to his office and then says that if she wants to see the palace, he will ask the maids to accompany her. Lolly touches the gentleman's hair and says that as a child he was naughty and asked not to be left alone. And then she says that during this time he has matured a lot and suggests not to be shy in front of her. Tyr says that he will fix his hair himself. At this time, the main character remembered that when the gentleman was little, he asked Lolly to always be with him, and she assured him that as long as he wanted it, she would always be with him. Alicia thought that these memories belonged only to her and Tyr, and she did not understand how this imposter knew. Lolly asks if she can go to the office with him, and then explains that she wants to watch him at work. He replies that he doesn't mind, and if he wants, he can go, but on one condition, that she won't interfere. The girl says that she will be quiet as a mouse and lower than grass. At this time, the main character does not understand what all this means, and she wonders if she really is. Lolly, then who is she? Alicia is thinking about the girl she met yesterday. They are like two peas in a pod, and she knew something that the imposter couldn't know, and thinks that someone knowledgeable told her about it. The princess remembers that it was only her and Tyr in the room at the time and assumes that someone was watching them. The main character thought that this girl had appeared out of nowhere and didn't understand why now, and it seemed to her that the emperor had promised to calm his feelings for Lolly, and that's why she somehow didn't notice that he had calmed them down. Oscar turns to the princess, apologizes, and explains that she was thinking for a while and asks if the Duke of Jouvert brought this girl. He replies that she is right, and of course he thought that his number would not even listen. Oscar says that she probably knows that even before the Duke, many tried to deceive him in the same way for which they paid. The princess asks if this means that His Majesty has believed him after all. The captain explains that given the recent incident with the Foci, it would be foolish to consider the Duke the Virgin Mary. But he understands that it was he who brought her to the palace and is therefore sure that His Majesty is not so careless. Oscar asks the lady if she is worried about this. He says that His Majesty had a special relationship with this maid, and he can't believe that he was brainwashed. The princess asks in surprise what she has to do with it. He says that if she has nothing to do with it, then that's good. At this time, the main character thought that sometimes Oscar sees right to the root and assumes that his intuition is good. The captain turns to Her Majesty and says that he did not tell her anything. The emperor asks Alicia if she is back from her walk. She replies that she is back and asks what he wanted. His Majesty says that they must talk. Tyr asks the princess how she is doing. He wonders if she has been feeling strange lately. He also wonders if she has noticed any bad omens. The girl replies that she didn't notice anything, and at that moment she thought that it was hard for her to breathe. And then she asks what he wanted to talk about. The emperor answers that it is Lolly, and he says that he has been looking for her for a long time and did not think that she would find him herself, and she has not changed at all, and every time he sees her, echoes of the past sound in his head, because he believes that Lolly has always remained special to him. Hearing this, the main character thought that she became interested in the fact that he did not even intend to finish her off, and then asks if she is really so dear to him. The princess says that she heard that Lolly disappeared suddenly, and he hated her for breaking her oath. Hearing this, Tyr asks how they dare to talk such nonsense in his palace. Alicia replies that a passerby told her about it. He says that Lolly is not just a maid who took care of him in his childhood, and then he says that he has not forgotten about her for a second. Tyr says that he swore to himself that he would find her one day. Hearing this, the main character thought that he had really been looking for her all this time, and therefore she felt somehow uneasy because she was terribly mistaken. The girl understands that now she can no longer tell him the truth, since the emperor has already found Lolly, and at least he thinks so. Alicia says that she is glad that they met again, and therefore hopes that he will not worry anymore. The emperor thanks her. At this time, the main character thought that he responded in a cold tone, looking away, and she thinks that perhaps she will never be able to truly be happy for him. Alicia wonders if she will have to entangle him in this lie, and she knows she doesn't want to, because she believes that she wouldn't wish to live a lie on anyone. The next day, Lolly turns to the maid and asks why she made her lukewarm, tasteless tea, because she thinks it's like she diluted the water with grass. The maid apologizes, and Lolly says that it was rude of her, and then she orders him to brew a new one right now before she tells His Majesty. Sitting in the chair, the girl thought that she was playing an entertaining performance, and she believes that she was not told lucky to meet the Duke that day, otherwise she would have become fertilizer long ago. The woman thought that she had only said a couple of magic words that the Duke had taught her, and the Emperor was already at her beck and call, and he blindly believed every word she said and understood that he could live his whole life with a golden spoon in his mouth. The girl says that she does not like this modest style, but she understands that she will have to endure until she conquers the emperor completely. And she thought that it seems to her that the emperor is not indifferent to this princess, and she wondered if she could become fertilizer instead of her. The maid informs the mistress that she has made new tea. The lady says that she is in time as she will give her a new task. Lolly tells the maid to tell Princess Alicia that she wants to have dinner with her 2 months ago. Sitting in a pub. A man turns to a girl and says that she is doing better and better every time she replies. Isn't it obvious that she is a natural-born actress, because that pig quickly fell for it as soon as she shed a tear. A guy tells a girl that he loves her. She says that she can't leave her sick mother. At this time, their aunt was watching them and said that her niece was playing the role of a sick mother, and they still didn't know how hard it was to play a sick aunt. The girl says that as soon as she told him that after her mother recovered she would marry him, he immediately opened his wallet, and she thinks that now probably he is preparing for the wedding with all his might, and she even feels sorry for him. At this time, a man comes into the beer bar and says that Nina is a nasty bitch. Seeing him, the lady asks why he is here. Christian says that she is a creature who deceived him and trampled his sincere feelings, and therefore he will finish her off. When Nina saw 2 healthy men, she explained that he had misunderstood her. However, the man did not listen to her and ordered her to be caught right away. However, the girl ran away through a small window, and she has been a fraudster for 10 years now. And as she ran away, she thought that she had never been caught before. At this time, Nina thought that she was sure it was fate, because she believes that she is not one of those who would give their life to a back alley, and she understands that if she is lucky, then perhaps she will become an empress. The maid tells the princess that Lolly wants to have dinner with her. Hearing this, the main character thinks that they only managed to exchange greetings and does not understand how she immediately invites her to dinner. The maid asks what to tell her. At this time, the main character thought that even if she could not reveal her identity, she would not allow the imposter to feel like a mistress, and especially if Duke Jouvert was standing behind her. Alicia replies that she can convey that she agrees, and at that moment she thought about using this valuable opportunity. When the princess arrived, turns to the lady and thanks her for inviting her to dinner, the imposter says that she is glad that she came. At this time, Alicia thought that no matter how she looked at Lolly from all sides, even the real Lolly is not such a Lolly. And therefore it is not surprising that the emperor believed her, and he thinks that this is a good opportunity to talk to her and find out information. Suddenly, the emperor joins them. He says that she said it was just dinner. Hearing this, the main character does not understand whether Tyr will be with them. Lolly apologizes and explains that she completely forgot to say that she invited the princess to befriend her, and then she says that although they were going to have dinner together, she asks for forgiveness for her liberty. At this time, the princess felt like a third wheel because she thinks that she didn't even warn her and found someone to apologize to. Alicia says she feels like she's disturbing them. Then she says she can leave right now and suggests they enjoy dinner together. Lolly says that she is not at all against her presence. Hearing this, the main character thought that she sees right through her and smiled, since she was initially going to find out what the Duke was up to, but if she does not leave now, she understands that she cannot vouch for herself. Alicia says that she will go. Hearing this, the emperor asks her to stand and then grabs her hand. Tyr says he wants to have dinner with her, the princess, and explains that he doesn't mind if she has dinner with them, and then asks if Lolly would be okay with that. She replies that she can do as she wishes. The main character ended up staying with them for dinner, and she felt like she was 9 years old and sitting at a distant relative's birthday party. Lolly says it's very tasty and then turns to the princess and asks if she liked the food. She replies that it is indeed delicious, and at that moment she thinks that she should eat and not scratch her tongue because she thinks that she might choke. Lolly takes the broccoli and tells His Majesty to eat it, but he objects and suggests that she eat it herself. Hearing this, she is surprised and says that he has become picky about food, and then she remembers that he was not naughty before. The girl says that he doesn't have to eat now if he doesn't like it, and then she says that when he remembers their poor life, it immediately begins to seem as if it were a dream. Hearing this, the princess thought that apparently she had thoroughly studied her past, and she does not understand where the Duke got such information from. Lali says that she also became a fashion designer, a sous chef at the palace, and she couldn't hide her happiness when she found out. And then she says that if she hadn't cooked for them, she doesn't even know how hard it would have been for them. The princess reflects on the fact that she has already met Maud, and she wonders if Maud believed her. The emperor says that she seems to have said that she vaguely remembers what happened before the abduction, and he sees that her memory is returning. And so he suggests that if she remembers anything else, let her tell it in detail. The girl replies that the thing is that she only remembers those times in fragments, and it seems that she still needs time, and then she says that she has one small request. Lali turns to the emperor and asks to let her live on the same floor with him and the princess, because she is sure that she will remember everything much faster. The main character heard this and didn't understand how she dared to ask the snake for such a thing, because she understood that the conclusion also sounded logical, and there was no fault to be found, and she wondered if she would really have to look at her every day now. Tyr says that won't do. She asks why. The gentleman explains that she has already attracted too much attention just by her appearance, and what's more, she is seen with him literally every day, and therefore he believes that she will soon have ill wishers. Tyr suggests that she wait until the noise dies down for her own safety. Then he suggests that they end their dinner there. The young gentleman turns to Lali and says that it is already late and suggests that she go and rest. Hearing this girl agree with him, she thought that it was only evening and he was already sending her away, and they hadn't even finished eating yet. The emperor turns to the princess and asks her to go. Seeing this, Lali does not understand why he does not want to see her off. And then she remembers that at their first meeting, his eyes sparkled. Lali thought that this princess had become too problematic, and therefore she thought that she should get her away from Tyr as soon as possible, and looking at her past mistakes, she was going to go to her goal in small steps. The girl understands that only the seduction method will be effective here. At this time, the princess turns to Her Majesty and asks why he refused her. He replies that he has already explained. Alicia says that he is certainly right, but he spent a lot of time finding her and is probably afraid of losing her again, and does not understand why. Tyr looked at the princess's face and said, "Who knows?" Hearing this, she thought that she definitely doesn't know and doesn't understand why he came so close to her, and she wouldn't like him to come even closer to her, because he thinks that strange thoughts are creeping into her head. The emperor turns to the girl and says that his words will probably seem stupid to her, but he found her much earlier, and he feels that he has already found her. Tyr recalls that when his power awakened, he noticed a change in the attitude of the nobility and the imperial family towards him, and it didn't take him long to find supporters and gain the throne. The young gentleman recalls that it seemed to him that power was already in his hands, but he was still unhappy, and he still could not find her, Lali. And during all the 7 years of her absence, he remembered every little thing, her movement, manner of speech, and habits, and this gave him temporary peace. Tyr touches her face and at this time thinks that she has changed externally, but he knows for sure, and then says that it is too late and suggests that she go. The young gentleman at this time thought that he wanted Lali to remember everything, and for now he was still willing to endure. Wakan turns to His Majesty and says that he was in no hurry, and then asks what he will say about Lali, whom the Duke brought. The Emperor asks if he is really interested. The advisor asks if it is she or not. Tyr says that they are like 2 peas in a pod and he would believe her. However, he noticed envy in her eyes when she looked at the princess and she is too persistent, and therefore consider that she is definitely not Lali. The advisor asks why he let her into the palace. Then he replies that because Lali is Alicia, and who knows, maybe she will remember everything when she sees her previous self exactly the same. And besides, this lie is just another excuse to eliminate the Duke. Wakan says that he sees the gentleman is full of confidence. The Emperor asks if he has any problems. He says no, but just hopes that he has not forgotten about the elves. After all, according to the latest information, they are looking for traces of the red dragon. The Emperor asks if he means the red dragon Fodia. The advisor says that the probability is high since Fodia saved people, founded this country, and dedicated her entire life to it, and then assures that dragons are eternal, and when the body is lost, their soul remains. Watkins says that he understands that finding the carcass is almost impossible and that they may have another goal. The Emperor states that this means they must be suppressed before they achieve these goals. The advisor asks if the purebloods will appear soon. Watkins says they will try to eliminate his high elf and the ruler of the empire, and naively hopes that by doing so, they will save their authority and be able to rule the world of men. And this is not the first time they have vexed them. The Emperor says they have no chance. The servant informs the master that a guest has come to see him. He invites him in. Lolly asks the Duke how he is doing. When he sees her, he asks why she came to him personally, and he is interested in what she wants to talk about. The girl explains that it is very important. Juven claims that she cannot stay here for long, and therefore suggests getting to the point. She says that it seems that His Majesty has bought it. The Duke is informed that he has long since learned this from the head maid. The girl says that the princess is in her way, and then explains that when she tries to get closer to His Majesty, he always turns his attention to her. Hearing this, Juven thought that it turns out that he no longer needs Lolly and considers this to be some kind of absurdity, and therefore he thinks understandably that after so many years, why should the Emperor worry about some maid from his childhood, and therefore he understands that this girl is no longer needed. The Duke suggests that she come up with an excuse and leave the palace, and then he claims that the Emperor will let her go, and as soon as he leaves the palace, he will thank her for her work. Lolly turns to the Duke and says that he is giving in too soon because he believes that the marriage of the Emperor and the princess is an extremely undesirable outcome for him, and he asks if she is right. Hearing this, the Duke thought that she was an impudent simpleton and also painfully clever, and then he asks what she wants. The girl says that she has a great idea so that she can separate the princess from His Majesty and become his legal wife, and then she offers to adopt her. The next day, when the main character saw the Emperor with Lolly, she thought that when she sees them together, it begins to seem to her that she dreamed. Mary turns to the princess and says that she has finally found her. The lady asks what happened. The maid says that she has received a letter, and there are several of them, including from the kingdom. Hearing this, the main character says that finally an answer has come and is happy about it, because this is the answer to the very letter in which she said that everything is fine with her. The family was happy to know that she was okay, and there was a lot of love and emotion in that letter, and she was also happy that they were okay too, but she thinks that Harry, even in a letter, is still Harry. When Alicia took the last letter, she saw that it was from Duke Jouvert. 2 weeks later, the maid informs the princess that everything is ready, and then she says that she looks absolutely beautiful, and she took great care to choose beautiful clothes since she is going to the Duke's banquet after all. Alicia claims that it is all thanks to her skill, and in general it is her first time at a banquet in the garden, and she is very curious. Mary says that she understands her and heard that the central garden of his estate is amazing because you can see flowers and plants from all over the continent. The main character heard this and became interested. You can only find harmless flowers there. And a few days ago, she received an invitation to a banquet. After the debutante ball, many aristocrats showered her with invitations, but she understood that an invitation from the Duke could not be ignored. Oscar says it is a coincidence that His Majesty will not be in the capital on this very day. The princess says she does not know whether she has the right to refuse an invitation from an influential aristocrat. The captain believes that Duke Jouvert simply could not have invited her without a reason. The princess says that if he has something planned, it is better to find out about it right away. And she believes that if the banquet takes place in broad daylight, nothing will happen. At this time, Oscar thought that His Majesty had ordered him to keep an eye on the princess, and therefore he felt he had to dig his own grave just in case. And for some reason, he felt like he had become the scapegoat. The captain turns to the lady and says that she should not go too far from him today, and then asks if they have agreed. The girl replies that she is counting on him. At this time, the princess thought that Lord Oscar was right because the Duke would not have called her without a reason, and she would personally find out what he really wanted. The captain tells the lady that they have arrived for a grand banquet. At this time, Alicia thinks that Mary was right and the foreign plants are striking. Oscar says it's immediately clear that they are on the land of a powerful aristocrat. The main character saw the Duke and thought that he didn't look hostile yet. Eden came up to Her Majesty and greeted her. He says no, he thought they would meet again, and then he says they haven't seen each other for a long time and asks how she is doing, and they wonder why His Majesty is not with her today. Alicia replies that he left a few days ago to inspect the territory, and therefore Mr. Oscar is accompanying her today. Eden says that last time she was surprised by Ariada's rude behavior, and even though it's in the past, he asks to let him apologize again. The girl says that it's nothing serious and then asks why his sister is not in sight today. The boy explains that she is not feeling well, which is why she could not come. Hearing this, the princess wishes her to get well soon. The Marquis says that she is simply overtired and thinks that it is nothing special. Eden says that he will finally be able to talk to her today. At this time, the main character thought that he somehow came too close to her. The Marquis says that he was very upset that they parted so quickly, and so he was looking forward to their new meeting because he wanted to meet her again. Alicia blushed when she heard these words. He asked in surprise if he had said something wrong. The lady suggested that he not pay attention, and at that moment she thought that this man was too interested in her. Suddenly, a man with black hair approaches them and addresses Eden. He explains to the princess that this is his brother, Marquis Adrian Riat. Adrian asks if she is the princess of the kingdom Ashtat, and then claims that he is glad to meet her. The lady reciprocates. At this time, the main character thought about why the brothers could be so different, because she thinks that the younger one is cute like a flower and the older one is stern like a tree. Oscar says that she knows the Marquis himself, since she often sees him in social circles, but his younger brother only began to appear in public this year. He was weak from birth, so he spent his entire childhood in the province, and then he recovered his health and finally came to the capital. The captain doesn't understand what the point is in suddenly bringing the younger one out into the world, and she's also worried that he's always making mistakes around the princess, and so she thinks that she needs to continue watching and find out if he's up to something. When the aristocrats saw Princess Yu, they looked at her very closely because they thought that she came all alone while His Majesty was away, and then they remember that at the debutant ball, she was always hanging around His Majesty. And so they think that probably all this is because of the maid. At this time, the main character thought that she had expected these gossips, but it was still tiring for her. Adrian turns to Marquis Eden and asks if he can see him for a moment. Then he turns to the princess and apologizes. She says it was nice to meet him. Eden says that he can't leave the princess alone. She replies that Lord Oscar is with her, so he needn't worry. Since he has business, he can go. Eden says that he is actually worried about her, as he has heard rumors about a maid that His Majesty has been looking for a long time. The Marquis says that during their last conversation she said that she didn't understand who she was, and as if she had locked herself into the framework of appearance and was suffering. And then he asks if she really feels like a stranger on this earth. Eden says that if it were him, he wouldn't let the princess feel that way. Hearing this, the main character thought that she felt like a stranger, and he said very precise words. And then she remembers that when she first woke up in this body, she was both amazed and happy that she was alive again. Alicia thought about what overwhelmed her most were the feelings that she tried with all her might to hold back to close her eyes to him, and it was a feeling of emptiness. And the time spent with Tyr disappeared in an instant, and even when she met him again, she no longer had a place next to him. The princess says that he is right and she probably experienced similar feelings, but she does not want to run away from them because she is sure that she did not meet Tyr in vain again, and therefore she does not want to leave him again. Alicia says that every time they meet, he seems to see what's on her mind, and that's why he finds it strange. And what's more, he awakens feelings in her that she didn't know about, and he considers him as if he were an old friend. The lady says that thanks to him she feels much better, and then thanks Mr. Eden. At this time, Duke Juven addresses the aristocrats and says that he wants to introduce someone to them. Having heard this, the main character does not understand why the Duke was silent all this time. Juven shows Lali and tells her that this is the girl he is going to officially adopt. Hearing this, the main character was surprised because this woman would become the Duke's daughter. At this time, the Emperor recalls the conversation with the princess. The lady told His Majesty that an invitation had arrived from the Duke of Jouvert. Hearing this, he suggested that she simply ignore it. However, the main character objects and says that she attended the imperial debutante ball, and if she, having officially come out into society, ignores the invitation of a famous aristocrat, then bad rumors will spread about her. Tyr assures her that he will shut up all the gossips. The girl says that this will only make her situation worse. He asks if she means to say that she will go there without him. The princess says that if she doesn't go, people will start making all sorts of assumptions, and so she will just show herself to people for a little while and asks to be allowed to do so. At this time, the emperor thought that the banquet had already begun. And since it was daytime, there were a lot of people there, and it was unlikely that anything could happen. The advisor addresses His Majesty and informs him that news has arrived from the palace. He asks for Chloe Wacken, which he seemed to be looking forward to, and then he invites him to read the contents. The advisor explains that he was sent 4 days ago, but there was a delay due to rain. The emperor reads that Duke Jouvert is going to declare that woman his adopted daughter, and that woman is Lali, whom the duke brought. Wacken wonders if he's going to elevate her status to propose marriage to her. Then he asks what he's going to do or leave things as they are. Tyr says that they have all the evidence about the poisonous plant, and therefore he believes that it is time to end this performance. At this time at the ball, the Duke says that Lady Lali carefully looked after His Majesty when he was still a prince. However, unfortunately, she is still a commoner, and to reward her for her efforts, he is going to accept her into the Jouvert family. The aristocrats heard this and did not understand why he needed to adopt some unknown commoner, but they understood that if Lady Lali married His Majesty, then the aristocrats would not gain much influence. Heard this gossip. The main character thought that now she understood what he needed. After all, he publicly demonstrated support for His Majesty's old acquaintance and thus embarrassed her. The princess understands why he invited her to the banquet. Eden turns to the lady and asks if she is okay. She apologizes and says that she wants to leave. Hearing this, the Marquis says that he is sorry and hopes that they will see each other again. When the girl left, Eden thought that it seemed like this situation was worth taking advantage of. At this time, Nina thought that everything was going according to plan. And she said this without hoping for anything, and he believed it so easily, and he thinks that it seems that the dukes of the empire are as fools as everyone else.